Tonight, we're exploring every magical creature in the world of Harry Potter, from the smallest garden pest to the most ancient fire-breathing apex predators. This is a fascinating topic, but I'll keep my narration calm to ensure you can still drift off to sleep. Thank you to those of you who've been joining us consistently. If you're falling asleep with us tonight, let me know in the comments how many nights in a row you've been here. And if this is your first night, just comment night 1. Now back to the video. Imagine walking through the forbidden forest at midnight, where the only light comes from the tip of your wand, and the air is thick with the scent of pine and something much more ancient. In the shadows, things are moving. Some of them are beautiful, like the silver-blooded unicorns that represent the ultimate purity of the natural world. Others are the stuff of nightmares, like the blind, skeletal thestrals that can only be seen by those who have looked death in the face. The wizarding world is not just a place of spells and potions. It is a living, breathing ecosystem teeming with life forms that defy every law of Muggle biology. These creatures are the pulse of the magical world, providing the core of every wand, the ingredients for every life-saving draft, and the ultimate test of a wizard's courage. When we look at the sheer scale of the bestiary created by Newt Scamander and documented throughout Harry's years at Hogwarts, we realise that we are looking at a hierarchy of power and danger. The Ministry of Magic has tried to categorise this chaos, creating a 5-level classification system to warn the public of what they are dealing with. But a rating on a piece of parchment cannot truly prepare you for the heat of a dragon's breath or the soul-crushing cold of a Dementor's presence. These beings are more than just monsters. They are entities with their own cultures, languages, and histories. The centaurs watch the stars with a wisdom that predates the founding of Hogwarts, while the house elves possess a powerful ancient magic that wizards have spent centuries trying to control and suppress. Tonight, we are going to peel back the layers of this hidden world. We will look into the dark corners of the Chamber of Secrets to understand the biology of the King of Serpents, a creature so lethal that even its ghost can kill. We will soar with the hippogriffs, learning the delicate etiquette of bowing to a creature that could just as easily tear you apart as carry you through the clouds. We will investigate the misunderstood, the overlooked, and the truly terrifying. Why do some creatures, like the Niffler, seek out gold with such obsession? What is the true origin of the Dementors? And can they even be considered alive? And how does a wizard like Rubus Hagrid find beauty in a creature like a blast-ended Scroot or a giant man-eating spider? The history of these beasts is intertwined with the history of magic itself. From the Great Fire of London to the peaks of the Himalayan mountains, magical creatures have shaped human folklore for millennia. But in the wizarding world, they are not myths. They are neighbours, guardians, and sometimes the ultimate executioners. As we journey through the classification of every known beast, being, and spirit, we will uncover the secrets of their habitats, their magical properties, and the roles they played in the wars that nearly tore the wizarding world apart. Whether it is the shimmering scales of a Swedish shortsnout or the mischievous glimmer in a Cornish pixie's eye, every creature has a story to tell. So settle in, let the flickering light of the common room fire guide you, and let us begin our deep dive into the extraordinary, the deadly, and the magnificent creatures of the Harry Potter universe. In the wizarding world, a creature's true danger is never written on its skin or scales. It is written in ink, on parchment, behind a locked door in the Ministry of Magic. The Department for the Regulation and Control of Magical Creatures sits in a quiet corridor of the Ministry, far from the bustling atrium, where visitors rarely wander. But its influence touches every magical beast, every winged horse, every serpent that slithers beneath the earth. This department does not merely track creatures. It decides which ones are seen, which ones are hidden, and which ones are erased from public memory entirely. You might think that a classification system is just a tool, a simple way to warn a wizard whether a creature is safe to approach. X means harmless, XX means you can keep one as a pet, XX means a competent wizard can handle it, XXX means danger, specialist knowledge required, and XXX means you will die, almost certainly, and no training can save you. But those letters are not neutral. They are political. They are strategic. They are the Ministry's way of controlling not just creatures, but the stories told about them. Let me take you inside that ledger. The system was created centuries ago, long before the modern ministry took shape. But it was refined by generations of bureaucrats who understood that fear is the most reliable tool of governance. A creature marked XXX is effectively outlawed. It cannot be owned, traded, studied openly, or even acknowledged in polite conversation. But here is the twist. Not every XXX creature is truly a wizard killer. Some are simply inconvenient. Some threaten the ministry's preferred narrative of a safe, orderly, magical society. And some, like the basilisk, are so deeply tied to dark wizardry that to admit their existence would be to admit that dark magic can be bred, controlled, and unleashed by any clever student in a school. Consider the basilisk. It is a XXXX creature, a king of serpents with a gaze that kills and venom that can destroy the most resilient of magical objects. But why is it classified so high? Because it is a threat, yes, but also because its very existence challenges the idea that Hogwarts is safe. The ministry spent decades covering up the Chamber of Secrets, burying the truth about Salazar Slytherin's monster. They did not want parents to know that a creature capable of petrifying children lived beneath the school. So the classification system allowed them to say, "This creature is too dangerous to discuss. We will not confirm it exists. We will not educate you about it. We will simply pretend it is a myth." That is the hidden politics. The X to XXXX system is a ledger of secrets. It determines which beasts are taught in care of magical creatures classes, which ones appear in the textbook Fantastic Beasts, and where to find them, and which ones are left as whispered legends in Diagon Alley. The ministry prioritizes concealment over conservation, because a known creature is a problem. A creature that cannot be explained, controlled, or hidden is a threat to the illusion that magic is orderly, and so they classify a creature as XXX is to silence it. This department holds files on creatures that have not one in 100 wizards has ever heard of. The augury, a thin bird whose cry foretold rain, but which was once thought to predict death. So its classification was adjusted to keep it out of the hands of fortune tellers. The demigus, whose invisibility and precognition made it valuable to smugglers, so it was marked XXX to limit trade. The phoenix, a creature of immense magical power and loyalty, is unclassified because the ministry cannot decide how to control something that cannot be captured. And then there are the creatures that never made it into the textbook at all. The true purpose of the department is not to protect creatures. It is to protect wizards from the truth that the magical world is wild, unpredictable, and full of forces that do not care about ministry regulations. Every beast labelled XXX is a reminder that there are things beyond our control, and every creature hidden behind a low classification is a creature the ministry has decided you do not need to worry about. But sometimes, worry is exactly what we should feel, because when a creature is erased from the public record, it does not disappear, it simply moves into the shadows. And in those shadows, a man like Newt Scamander kept his own ledger, a field notebook of creatures the ministry refused to see. Creatures that demanded a different kind of care, creatures that could reshape everything we thought we knew about magic. That notebook is waiting for us. In the next chapter, we will open it. The ministry's classification system gave the wizarding world a tidy way to label danger, but it didn't tell the real story. Behind every X, every symbol stamped on a file, there was a living creature that someone had to find, name, and understand. And no one understood that better than Newton Artemis Fido Scamander. You might know him as the author of a textbook you probably had to buy for care of magical creatures. But Newt's story is not about a school book. It is about a man who spent a lifetime chasing the undocumented, often at great personal cost. Let's go back to where it all started. Newt Scamander was born in 1897. His mother was a breeder of hippogriffs, so he grew up around magical creatures. But it wasn't until he was expelled from Hogwarts, in a rather famous incident involving a dangerous creature and a fellow student, that his true path began. Instead of finishing school, Newt was sent to work at the Ministry of Magic, in the Office for House Elf Relocation. A dull job on paper, but it gave him access to official reports, field observations, and a growing frustration with how little the wizarding world actually knew. He spent his evenings compiling his own notes, sketching creatures he'd never seen in any official ledger. Eventually, Newt saved enough to fund his own expedition. He travelled to every continent, often alone, sometimes following rumours that turned out to be nests of acromantulas, or whole herds of erumpents. He documented everything: appearance, behaviour, habitat, breeding cycles, and critically, the level of danger they posed to an unprepared wizard. He didn't just rely on ministry records. He interviewed local magical communities, tracked migration patterns, and once spent 3 months in a cursed forest in Sumatra just to confirm the existence of a nocturnal beast that until then had been considered a myth. By the 1920s, Newt had amassed a vast collection of field notes, but the world he was cataloguing was changing. The rise of Grindelwald's threat, growing secrecy laws, and the increasing tendency of the ministry to classify creatures out of fear rather than knowledge all pushed Newt to do something more. He needed to share what he had learned, not just with the few experts who's who of magical zoology, but with the average witch or wizard who might one day encounter a Grindylow in a village pond. That is how a simple schoolbook was born. On a practical level, the ministry needed a standard textbook for Hogwarts. Newt's manuscript, originally titled A Guide to Magical Beasts and Their Habitats, was submitted, heavily edited by officials who wanted to remove anything too controversial or alarming, and then published in 1927 as Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. It was never meant to be a bestseller, just a required text for third-year students. But something unexpected happened. The book became a phenomenon. Wizards who had never ventured beyond their own street started reading about alchemies and rune spores. They began to see the world around them as filled with invisible wonders. How did a schoolbook become the definitive guide to global magical ecology? Part of it was timing. The wizarding world was becoming more insular after the International Statute of Secrecy had been tightened. People were hungry for a window into the wild magic that still existed beyond the borders of Diagon Alley. And Newt's writing was personal. It didn't read like a dry encyclopedia. He wrote about the first time he saw a mooncalf dancing under the full moon. He described the particular warmth of a phoenix's tail feathers. He included warnings that sounded like advice from a friend, not a bureaucrat. But the cost was significant. Newt's obsession with documenting the undocumented took a toll on his relationships. He spent years away from home, missing family events, straining his marriage to Porpentia Goldstein, who understood his work but still felt the weight of his absences. His health suffered. He endured bites, stings, and burns that left permanent scars, and in the later editions of the book, you can see Aware the Weariness. He started including cautionary notes that bordered on melancholy. The Niffler was charming but destructive. The Thestral could be seen only by those who had witnessed death. And Newt had seen plenty. The greatest personal cost, perhaps, was the knowledge that no matter how many creatures he catalogued, there would remain countless others that would never be documented. Some were lost to habitat destruction, others to ministry suppression. A few existed only in the fading memories of elderly witches in remote villages. Newt's field notes, the originals, are now housed in a restricted section of the British ministry, but they are not complete. He left pages blank, with sketches of only partial outlines and question marks. The creatures that got away. That unfinished feeling is what makes the book so alive. It reminds us that the world of magical creatures is not a fixed list. It is a living, breathing ecosystem that changes with every generation, every new discovery, every extinction. And sometimes, the most dangerous of all, in the shadows of that ecosystem, something old and patient has been waiting. Something that predates even the ministry's oldest classifications. Something that does not appear in any textbook, because to name it is to risk calling it. In our next chapter, we enter the Chamber of Secrets to meet the King of Serpents. From the field notes of Newt Scamander, we move from the quiet margins of magical ecology to its most terrifying apex. The basilisk is not merely a serpent. It is a living weapon, a creature that has haunted wizarding nightmares for millennia. And for good reason. Its very existence defies the natural order, a perfect predator whose only weakness is that it cannot be controlled. The basilisk is often called the King of Serpents, but that title undersells its true nature. It is a monster that can live for 1,000 years, and in that time it grows to an immense size, its scales hardening into an almost impenetrable armour. The largest known specimen, the one that lurked beneath Hogwarts, measured over 50 feet long. Its skin is a brilliant, blinding green, like emerald dragged through shadow, and its eyes are a piercing yellow that seem to hold no soul. But it is the eyes that define the basilisk. They are not simply for seeing. They are instruments of instant death. To understand deadly gaze, we have to look at the mechanics of petrification. The basilisk's gaze kills any creature that meets it directly, its eyes directly. The magic behind that stare is not a spell, but a biological weapon, a kind of venom that travels through the optic nerves, transmit directly into the brain. Death is instantaneous. The victim's body simply ceases. However, if the victim does not look directly into the basilisk's eyes, if they catch only a reflection or see them through a lens, the venom is diluted, causing a state of full petrification. The victim becomes a living statue, frozen in time, their blood hardened to stone, their heartbeat suspended. This is not true death, but it is a grotesque half-step from death, a pause that can be reversed only by the most potent counterpotion. Now consider that this creature lived for 1,000 years in a sealed chamber deep beneath Hogwarts. It was not wild, it was bred, born from a chicken egg hatched under a toad, a dark magic ritual that created the first basilisk. And it was woken, not by chance, but by a ghost of a boy named Tom Riddle, who used a cursed diary to possess a student named Ginny Weasley. The Chamber of Secrets incident of 1992 nearly ended Hogwarts, not through an army of monsters, but through a single creature. The basilisk roamed the pipes and corridors, and its gaze caught students by accident, through reflections in puddles, in mirrors, in a camera lens. One after another, students were found frozen in the corridors, their bodies rigid, no pulse, no breath. The school was thrown into panic. Whispers of an ancient enemy, a monster that no one could see, spread like wildfire. What made the basilisk so terrifying was its invisibility in plain sight. It could move through the plumbing without a sound. It could strike from any shadow, and only one wizard in history, Parselmouth Harry Potter, could hear its hissing whispers. Harry's battle in the chamber is legendary, but the key to his survival was the Phoenix Forks, who blinded the basilisk with his talons, and the sword of Gryffindor, which absorbed the venom. That venom, by the way, was so potent it could destroy a Horcrux. The basilisk was not just a beast, it was a natural counter to the darkest magic ever created. But the basilisk is only one of the apex predators that stalk the wizarding world. There are others, creatures that breathe fire, that hunt from the skies, that possess intelligence and fury beyond measure. Among them, no group is more iconic than the winged terrors that have been hoarding gold and terrorizing villages for centuries. That story, the story of dragons, their history, their species, and the terrible price of trying to tame them, is what we will delve into next in a chapter we call Dragonology and the Apex Predators. Prepare to meet the Hungarian horntail, the Swedish short snout, and the species that make even the bravest wizards rethink their career choices. But for now, let the image of that giant serpent, its eyes glowing in the dark, fade into the quiet. Sleep well, and remember, some legends are better left sleeping. The basilisk's petrifying gaze was a horror of anatomy, a 1,000-year-old weapon of pure ocular magic. But there is another creature whose silent slither is only the prelude to a far more orchestrated chaos. In the wizarding world, if the basilisk is the ambush predator of the dark, then dragons are the apex predators of the open sky, creatures that do not need to hide because nothing hunts them. Let us leave the Chamber of Secrets behind and step into the flame-lit study of dragonology, where we will meet the 10 primary dragon breeds and understand why one of them is considered the most dangerous dragon in existence. From the misty lochs of Scotland to the volcanic islands of the Pacific, dragon populations have shaped wizarding history for centuries. The Ministry of Magic classifies every dragon as a XXX, a known wizard killer, impossible to train, and yet across the continents, 10 distinct breeds have evolved distinct adaptations. We begin with the Hebridean Black, the native dragon of the British Isles. This beast reaches up to 30 feet in length, its scales rough as iron and its eyes a vivid purple. It hunts mostly deer and sometimes cattle, but wizards know it best for its spiked tail and its flame of brilliant yellow. The Hebridean Black prefers mountainous terrain, and its roar can be heard for miles across the Hebridean Sea. Then there is the common Welsh Green. More placid than its Scottish cousin, it builds its nests high in the mountains of Snowdonia. Its flame issues in narrow jets, and it is known for its melodic roar, almost a song. But make no mistake, it is still an XXX creature, fully capable of incinerating a village. Heading off the west coast of Ireland and the Isle of Man, we find the Swedish short snout. This silvery blue dragon is prized for its hide and its relatively low aggression toward humans. if you can call a dragon low aggression. It breathes a brilliant blue flame that burns at such high temperature that it turns wood to ash in seconds. From the Carpathians comes the Romanian longhorn, with its 2 glittering horns of gold. These horns are highly prized in potion making and trade, which has made the Romanian longhorn a target of poachers. Yet in the wild it is a territorial force, its flame orange and its range covering the deep forests of Transylvania. The Norwegian ridgeback is perhaps the breed most familiar to us through Hagrid's story. Hagrid's beloved Norberta. This dragon has a row of black ridges along its spine, and its young are capable of breathing fire from the moment they hatch. It is fiercely aggressive, known to attack even its own kind during mating. The ridgeback's venom is not as potent as a basilisk's, but its fangs carry a poison that can kill a human within minutes. The Antipodean opali hails from New Zealand, but it has been known to migrate to Australia when its nesting grounds become scarce. It is considered one of the most beautiful dragons, with pearly scales and multicoloured eyes, but it is also a stealth hunter. Its flame is a vivid red, and it prefers to prey on sheep, creating trail of confusion because it can fly silently. We must also mention the Peruvian vipertooth, a smaller, faster and exceedingly venomous species that plagued Peru in the 19th century. Its body is scaled in a mottled green, and it prefers to hunt humans, which led to a ashing of by the Peruvian ministry. It was once believed extinct, but dragonologists have confirmed small populations still exist in the Amazon. The Chinese fireball is a spectacle to behold. It is also known as the lion dragon because of its mane of golden spines and its deep crimson scales. Its face is crowned with a snout so powerful it can blast a burst of mushroom-shaped fire. The fireball is surprisingly tolerant of its own kind, often sharing territory with several dozen others, but it is fiercely protective of its eggs. Wizards have learned to keep a safe distance. Its flame can reach up to 40 feet. Finally, the Ukrainian ironbelly is the largest breed, weighing up to 6 tons. Its scales are metallic, and it flies slowly but with terrifying inertia. During a storm in the late 17th century, an ironbelly destroyed an entire battle before the ministry intervened. It is a dragon of raw power, not speed, but its endurance is legendary. And then there is the Hungarian horntail. Why is it considered the most dangerous dragon in existence? The answer lies in a combination of physics, instinct, and temperament. The horntail has a tail studded with spikes of bronze. Each spike is capable of piercing dragon hide. It can whip its tail with such velocity that it can snipe a wizard off a broom from 30 yards. Its flame is the longest breathing of any breed, reaching up to 50 feet, and it has a habit of targeting eyes and faces first. Its scales are black, blending into the night sky, and its yellow eyes are said to never blink. In a study of dragon attack statistics, before the 20th century, the Hungarian horntail accounted for more wizard deaths than the next 3 species combined. The brutality of the 1994 Triwizard Tournament's first task is that the Ministry of Magic chose to place Hogwarts champions directly in front of these creatures for sport. Let us recall the scene. 4 champions, 4 dragons, each guarding a golden egg in a nesting enclosure. The task was to retrieve the egg without being killed. For Harry Potter, his lot drew the Hungarian horntail. The task was not a test of magical power alone, it was a test of nerve. The horntail was chained to the ground, but its chain was long enough to allow it to lunge. Harry's only chance came from surveying the arena and noticing the dragon's blind spot near its wing joint. He called his firebolt broomstick. The summoning charm worked, and he flew a dangerous loop around the dragon to grab the egg. One misjudgment of distance, and he would have been impaled on those bronze spikes. The crowd screamed as the horntail lunged, flame scorching the stands. It was the first time in centuries that wizards had willingly placed themselves in reach of an XXX-class predator for entertainment. And yet, even as we marvel at the horntail's fury, we must remember that dragons are not only wild apex predators. Some are kept in captivity for one purpose: guardianship. The Gringotts Wizarding Bank has long used a dragon to guard its deepest vaults. A Ukrainian ironbelly, chained beneath the bank, blind and starving, forced to spew flame at any intruder. That dragon, the guardian of the Lestrange vaults, holds a story more desperate than any wild hunt. And in a later chapter, we will descend into that darkness to see what it means for a creature of such fire to be kept in chains. Of all the dragons we explored in the previous chapter, from the Hebridean Black to the Chinese Fireball, none were described as living their entire lives in absolute darkness. None were robbed of sight itself. Yet beneath the vaults of Gringotts Wizard Bank, deep under the streets of London, a Ukrainian ironbelly existed in a state of perpetual twilight, a creature trained not through fire and flight, but through pain and sensory deprivation. The Ukrainian ironbelly is one of the largest dragon breeds on record. Its scales composed of a metallic grey that glints like steel in the rare moments it sees light. Its eggs are known to be among the deepest red in the dragon world, matching the fury that should have burned in its heart. But this particular ironbelly never knew the wild skies of its homeland. It was captured, perhaps as a hatchling, and dragged beneath the earth to serve one purpose only: guard the deepest vaults of the most secure bank in the wizarding world. Now, to understand the tragic life of this creature, we must first understand the goblin philosophy of dragon training. The goblins have never subscribed to the human notion of partnership or even domestication. For them, a guardian dragon is a tool, a weapon to be honed through relentless pressure, and they have perfected a method that relies on two deeply cruel mechanisms: pain and sensory deprivation. The process begins by keeping the dragon in total darkness, a blackness so complete that the creature's other senses become hyperalert, desperate for any stimulus. But there is no stimulus. No wind, no warmth, no scent of prey. Only the cold stone of its enclosure and the distant drip of water somewhere in the rock. The goblins feed it sparingly, just enough to keep it alive, but never enough to satisfy its hunger. They visit it only to deliver pain, sharp bursts of fire from enchanted rods, or the crack of a whip enchanted to burn like dragonfire itself. The dragon learns that pain comes from above, from the direction of the goblins, who approach from tunnels carved into the ceiling. It learns that the only way to avoid pain is to listen, to wait, to react with instant violence toward anything that enters its domain. But here is the true horror. The sensory deprivation destroys the dragon's ability to distinguish friend from foe. By the time the process is complete, the creature has no concept of loyalty, only a programmed response to attack anything that moves within its territory. It no longer sees the goblins who feed it. It only feels the pain they deliver, and it associates that pain with the entire world beyond its own skin. This is why, when Harry Potter, Ron Weasley, and Hermione Granger descended into the depths of Gringotts on that fateful day in May of 1998, they found themselves facing a monster that had been systematically unmade. The Ukrainian ironbelly that guarded the Lestrange vault was blind, completely blind. Years of darkness had rendered its eyes useless, opaque cataracts, covering what had once been fierce golden irises. But blindness does not make a dragon harmless. In fact, it makes it more dangerous because it relies entirely on sound and vibration. Every footfall, every whispered word, every heartbeat resonates through the stone floor and becomes a target. The goblins had not merely caged a beast, they had created a sentient landmine. When the Golden Trio arrived, they had no choice but to face this guardian. They had no dragon taming skills, no experience with a creature of this magnitude. All they had was a desperate plan and a desperate hope. Harry, using Parseltongue, attempted to communicate, but the ironbelly had been broken too thoroughly. It did not respond to language. It responded only to movement and noise. The scene that unfolded was chaotic, terrifying, and ultimately symbolic. The dragon broke free from its chains, not because of the trio's efforts, but because of the destruction caused by their escape. The goblin security measures, the enchanted vaults, the thief downfall, the treasure protecting curses, all contributed to a chain reaction that shattered the ironbelly's restraint. And in that moment of chaos, the dragon did something it had not done in years. It moved upward. It sensed the open air above, a memory etched into its primal brain, and it began to burrow, to climb, to tear its way through the stone and metal of Gringotts. The Golden Trio clung to its back, as it erupted through the marble floors, past the astonished goblins, and broke through the brass doors into the streets of London. For the first time in its life, the Ukrainian ironbelly felt sunlight on its useless eyes. It did not see the city, but it could smell the river, feel the wind, hear the cries of birds. It was free, and here is the profoundly tragic irony. The dragon had no concept of freedom. It had never known the open sky. It had never hunted prey or soared above mountains. Its liberation was a physical event, not a psychological one. It flew blindly, erratically, crashing into buildings and tower tops, until it vanished over the rooftops, likely not surviving much longer in a world it could not perceive. But for a brief moment, it was a symbol of the war itself, a creature chained, abused, and finally turned loose by the very people who had come to steal from its keepers. The escape of the Golden Trio from Gringotts was not merely a getaway, it was an act of liberation for the dragon, even if that liberation came too late. The Iron Belly had spent its entire existence underground, trained through pain, kept in sensory deprivation, and turned into a weapon that had no will of its own. When it finally broke free, it was not a triumph of good over evil. It was a release of a being that had been denied any meaningful life. And in that sense, the dragon's fate mirrors something darker, something we will explore next, as we turn our attention to another place where creatures are imprisoned not for theft or use, but for the simple crime of being what they are. A place where the darkness is not just physical, but psychological, where the guards are not goblins, but something far more ancient and far more hungry. The guardians of Azkaban do not respond to pain, they feed on it. The Ukrainian Ironbelly beneath Gringotts was bound by chains and darkness, trained through pain into a living weapon. But the wizarding world keeps other prisoners too, and some guards are not so easily chained. The darkest fortress in Britain is not guarded by dragons or goblins. It is guarded by something that does not eat, does not sleep, and does not reason. Something that has no body of its own, yet can leave you with less than a shell. Azkaban is a place where the walls themselves remember despair, and its sentinels are the Dementors. What are they, really? The Ministry classifies them as beings, but that label feels almost generous. They do not breed, they do not age, they do not laugh or cry, or think the way we understand thought. Some wizards argue they are not creatures at all, but manifestations of despair given form, a kind of concentrated emotional rot that feeds on happiness and hope the way a fire feeds on oxygen. When a Dementor glides toward you, the air grows cold, the light dims, and every joyful memory you have ever held begins to dissolve, like ink bleeding into water. You are left with only the worst moments of your life, replayed on a loop until you forget there was ever anything else. This is not merely a frightening encounter, it is a feeding. The Dementor consumes the positive emotions in the room, leaving behind a hollow numbness. But if that were all, they might still be manageable, terrible, but survivable. The true horror lies in what they can do when they are not merely feeding, when they are ordered to performing what the Ministry calls the Dementor's kiss. It is a misnomer. There is nothing tender about it. The creature latches its mouth onto the victim's lips, and it does not draw breath. It draws something far more essential. It draws out the soul, the entire soul. A human being without a soul is not dead. The heart still beats, the lungs still fill, but the person you were is gone, replaced by an empty husk that will never again love or learn or remember. The kiss is irreversible. There is no known magic to restore what has been taken. And yet the Ministry of Magic chose to ally itself with these beings. They struck a deal with the personification of fear itself. Why? Because Azkaban was built on a tiny island in the North Sea, and no wizard prison had ever held the worst criminals for long. The old dungeons were broken out of, magically circumvented, or simply overpowered. The Ministry needed a deterrent that could not be bribed, that could not be reasoned with, that would drain the will to escape from the moment a prisoner arrived. So they invited the Dementors in. They gave them a steady supply of human misery, endless prisoners to feed upon, and in exchange the Dementors kept the inmates pacified, hollowed out, incapable of rebellion. The arrangement worked for decades. Prisoners rotted in their cells, reliving their worst memories until they forgot their own names. Escapes were almost unheard of, because there was no one left with the will to attempt one. But the price was that the Ministry handed a pack of soul-eating wraiths the keys to their own justice system. And the Dementors are not loyal. They are not bound by law or contract. They serve only the darkness that sustains them. And when the Dark Lord returned, they simply switched sides. The same creatures that guarded Azkaban became his army. They had always been weapons, just pointed in the wrong direction. So perhaps the real question is not whether Dementors provoke, is not whether they are creatures or manifestations, but whether they were ever truly controlled at all. The Ministry thought they had a deal, but you cannot bargain with despair. You can only feed it and hope it does not turn its hollow gaze toward you first. That same forest that borders Hogwarts holds its own secrets, darker than any wizard prison. Beyond the trees, there are things that do not feed on memory, but on flesh and bone and fear of a far older kind. The Forbidden Forest's darkest corner is waiting, and there are shadows there that have not moved for centuries. And yet, for all the terror they inspire, Dementors represent a kind of emotional death, a draining of hope. But what about the creatures that embody pure physical fear? What about the things that scuttle in the dark with 8 eyes, watching, waiting for the moment you stray from the path? The Forbidden Forest hides many secrets, but none more deeply woven into the life of Hogwarts than the colony of Acromantulas that Aragog founded. To understand this colony is to understand the shadow that Hagrid carried with him for 50 years. The thin line between a friend and a monster, between a pet and a predator. Long before Harry Potter ever set foot in the forest, a young gamekeeper named Rubeus Hagrid discovered something extraordinary in a stranger's travel bag. It was an egg, enormous and pale, with a faint tremor of life inside. To any sensible wizard, that egg would have spelled trouble. But Hagrid always saw potential where others saw danger. He nurtured that egg in a warm, dark corner of his hut, and when it hatched, a tiny, spindly creature emerged, a spider unlike any other. This was Aragog, an Acromantula, one of the most dangerous magical beasts known to the magical world. But to Hagrid, he was simply a friend, and so began a relationship that would define both of their lives. Aragog grew quickly. Within months, he was the size of a small dog, then a sheep, then a horse. His intelligence was undeniable. He could speak, reason, and form complex social structures. Acromantulas are not mere spiders. They are highly intelligent, capable of human speech, and possess a sophisticated language among themselves. Yet the Ministry of Magic classifies them XX, known wizard killers, impossible to train. Why? Because despite their intelligence, they have an insatiable appetite for human flesh. Their moral compass does not register the value of a wizard's life. To an Acromantula, a human is simply prey, no different from a deer or a goblin. And that is the terrifying paradox. A creature that can talk to you, that can reason, that can even form bonds of loyalty, will still eat you without a second thought when hunger strikes. When Aragog grew too large for Hagrid's hut, the gamekeeper made a difficult choice. He carried the massive spider into the Forbidden Forest and released him near the heart of the woods. There, Aragog found a mate, a female Acromantula named Mosag, and together they began to colonize the dark, damp corners of the forest. Over the decades, their offspring multiplied, creating a sprawling colony that spread through the oldest trees and deepest ravines. By the time Harry, Ron, and Hermione stumbled upon them, in their second year, the colony numbered in the hundreds, perhaps thousands. They lived in a dim, cavernous hollow where the ground was littered with the bones of deer, birds, and the occasional wizard who wandered too far. And yet Aragog remained loyal to Hagrid. He ordered his children never to harm the gamekeeper, and they obeyed, mostly. But that loyalty did not extend to other humans. The colony fed on anyone who entered their territory, and they were always hungry. This is the tragic flaw in Hagrid's philosophy of creatures. He sees the potential for goodness, but he underestimates the primal urge that governs beasts like the Acromantula. They are not evil in the way that Dementors are evil. They are simply predators, following an instinct honed over millions of years. Their intelligence only makes them more dangerous, because they can plan, they can deceive, and they can remember. The Ministry's classification of XXXX is not arbitrary. It reflects the reality that, despite their ability to speak and reason, Acromantulas are not beings in the legal sense. They are treated as beasts, subject to strict regulations. No wizard in their right mind would attempt to domesticate one, and yet Hagrid did. He saw Aragog as a pet, a friend, a creature of wonder. The thin line between Hagrid's pets and man-eating monsters is a line that he himself cannot see. He blurs it constantly, from the dragon Norbert to the blast-ended Scroots. But with Aragog, the consequences were far greater. The colony he created became a permanent threat to the safety of Hogwarts, a dark corner of the Forbidden Forest that generations of students were warned to avoid. When Aragog finally died of old age in Harry's 6th year, the colony was left without its patriarch. The younger Acromantulas became more aggressive, more reckless. They began to creep closer to the edges of the forest, their hunger growing as their numbers swelled. It was only a matter of time before they would pose a direct danger to the school itself. And then, in the final battle for Hogwarts, that danger became real. The Acromantula colony poured out of the Forbidden Forest, joining Voldemort's army, driven by nothing more than the promise of fresh meat. They had no allegiance to the Dark Lord. They simply saw an opportunity to feed. So what does this tell us about the nature of magical creatures? It tells us that intelligence does not equal morality. It tells us that the deepest fear is not the mindless beast, but the thinking predator that can look you in the eye and speak your name before it devours you. And it leaves us with a disturbing question. If a creature as intelligent as an Acromantula can be so utterly alien, what other riddles of the mind and soul remain hidden in the darkest corners of the magical world? Perhaps the next chapter in our journey will uncover something even stranger. A creature that tests not just your courage, but your wits. A being that asks you a question and judges your answer. The Sphinx is not a beast you can fight. You have to outthink it, and that is a very different kind of terror. The Acromantula colony in the Forbidden Forest proves that intelligence does not guarantee mercy. Aragog could speak, reason, and even form a pact with Hagrid, yet he still fed human victims to his offspring without a second thought. That dark paradox, a thinking creature that operates by instinct, is exactly what the very thread that leads us into the next puzzle of the wizarding world. The Sphinx. When the Triwizard Tournament returned in 1994, the third task was designed as a living maze, a shifting labyrinth filled with obstacles that tested more than just spellcasting. The Ministry and the Hogwarts staff chose their guardians carefully. They wanted creatures that could think, that could judge, that could offer a challenge no textbook could prepare a champion for. And so, alongside blast-ended Scroots and enchanted hedges, they placed a Sphinx. But the Sphinx is not a beast you can simply outrun or overpower. She belongs to a category of magical being that blurs the line between animal and person. With the head of a woman, the body of a lion, and wings that fold like golden silk, she carries an ancient intelligence that has a presence that demands respect. In the wizarding world, Sphinxes are classified as XXX dangerous, requiring specialist knowledge. But that label undersells their true nature. They are not dangerous because they bite or claw. They are dangerous because they think. The Sphinx that guarded one of the maze's central passages faced Harry Potter with a riddle, not a random question, but a carefully crafted puzzle that required to pass. Why? Because for a Sphinx, riddles are not entertainment. They are a biological defense mechanism. In the wild, a Sphinx uses a riddle to test the intelligence of any creature that approaches her territory. If the intruder can solve it, she concludes they are worthy of passage. If they cannot, she attacks. This is not cruelty. It is a survival strategy honed over millennia. The Sphinx's mind is her primary weapon, and she wields it with surgical precision. Yet here we encounter the ethical dilemma that shadows the entire Triwizard maze. The champions are teenagers, yes, but the creatures placed before them are not merely obstacles. They are sentient beings with their own cultures, languages, and moral codes. The Sphinx could have chosen to kill Harry when he hesitated. She did not. She simply blocked his path and waited. Because she understood the terms of her employment, the Ministry had essentially hired a highly intelligent creature to serve as a gatekeeper, turning her cognitive abilities into a tool for a game. Compare this to the Acromantula colony, which was left to its own devices in the forest. The Sphinx was removed from her natural habitat and placed inside a maze built by wizards, forced to repeat riddles until a champion succeeded. It is a quiet violation of the very sentience that makes her remarkable. The wizarding world is full of such contradictions. Creatures that can speak, feel, and choose are often treated as assets to some wizards, threats to others. The Sphinx, like the Acromantula, exists in a grey zone. She is not a monster, but she can be monstrous if provoked. She is not a pet, but she can be commanded under the right conditions. And in the maze, her dignified patience stood in stark contrast to the chaos around her. She did not chase or attack. She offered a puzzle. And when Harry answered correctly, when he spoke, the worded his solution to the riddle of the Sphinx, he stepped aside, not with anger, but with a quiet acknowledgement of his worth. That moment raises a haunting question. If the Sphinx had been given a choice, would she have participated in the tournament at all? And what of the other sentient creatures used as obstacles? The blast-ended Scroots were bred for aggression, their intelligence irrelevant, but the Sphinx was different. She remembered. She not a simple creature. She was a philosopher with claws. And as we move deeper into the magical bestiary, we must face another kind of sentience. The invisible horses that pull the carriages to Hogwarts, visible only to those who have seen death. That is the haunting truth waiting for us in the shadows of the Forbidden Forest. Next, we will examine the Thestrals and the omens that follow the dead. The Sphinx posed her riddle, not merely as a gatekeeper, but as a creature whose very nature is woven from the threads of mortality. She guards ancient secrets, asks questions of life and death, and in that same shadow, we find another beast, one far more misunderstood, far more hidden. There is a creature that has been called an omen of misfortune, a spectral horse that pulls the carriages of Hogwarts, invisible to all but those who have paid the highest price of admission. We are speaking, of course, of the Thestral. To see a Thestral, you must have witnessed death and fully comprehended its passage. This is not a magical quirk or a genetic mutation. It is a biological requirement etched into the creature's very essence. The Thestral's skin, flesh and bones are as real as any horse's. But for those who have not seen death, the Thestral is utterly invisible. The sight is granted not by a spell, but by experience, by the moment when the final breath leaves a body and the soul departs. It is as though the veil between worlds is lifted for that one creature, and only those who have stood at that veil can perceive it. The Thestral does not cause death. It simply exists in the space that death occupies in our minds. This connection to mortality has stigmatized the Thestral for centuries. For centuries, wizards and witches have regarded them as harbingers of doom, cursing the very sight of their presence and burning their bones to ward off ill luck. But the truth is far simpler. The Thestral is a scavenger, an opportunist, not a killer. It feeds on carrion, on the dead flesh of other creatures, and it has no interest in taking life. The superstition stems from a deeper fear that seeing a Thestral means you have been touched by death, that you carry its stain. And in a society that so often buries its grief beneath celebration, the Thestral becomes an uncomfortable reminder. It is not the beast that is unlucky, it is the seeing that is unwanted. Yet these very creatures played a vital role in one of the most pivotal battles of the Second Wizarding War. The Battle of the Department of Mysteries. When Harry Potter, Ron Weasley, Hermione Granger, and their companions needed to reach the Ministry of Magic in the midst of a war, it was the Thestrals who carried them. Hagrid had trained a small herd to pull the flying carriages, more often used for transport, but that night they flew low over the bloody skies of London, their silhouettes invisible to the muggles below, their silent wings cutting through the air. They were not omens, they were a cavalry. They delivered Harry and waited patient and still as the Order of the Phoenix fought and died in the Hall of Prophecies. It was a Thestral that carried Harry and his friends to safety, its hide iron grey and its eyes blank sadness. They were the last witness of the chaos, and they were the first to bringers of hope. And now, as we consider the creatures that dwell at the edges of life and death, we cannot ignore the one being that is the antithesis to the Thestral's darkness, a bird of fire and tears, of rebirth and endless hope. The next chapter is about the noble phoenix, and it holds secrets that even the Thestral cannot glimpse across that final veil. We've just emerged from the shadow of the Thestral, a creature bound to death and the grief of those who have witnessed it. But there is another bird, rarer and far more ancient, that exists at the opposite end of that same cycle, the noble phoenix, where the Thestral feeds on the aftermath of mortality. The phoenix is its own eternal rebuttal. This creature does not simply live, it burns, falls to ash and rises again, reborn from the embers of its own ending. That alone makes it one of the most profound magical beings in the wizarding world. But its story runs far deeper than even that singular miracle. The phoenix is a bird of extraordinary size, roughly the dimensions of a swan, with plumage that shifts between brilliant crimson and molten gold. Its tail feathers are long and flowing, reminiscent of a peacock's train, but with an almost liquid shimmer. Its eyes are dark and intelligent, holding a depth that suggests an awareness far beyond that of any ordinary creature. And its song is said to be so hauntingly beautiful that it can instill courage in the faint of heart, or, conversely, strike fear into those with wicked intentions. The phoenix is classified by the Ministry as a 4X creature, dangerous, requiring specialist knowledge. But that is a bureaucratic label that misses the truth. The phoenix is not dangerous in the way a dragon or a basilisk is dangerous. Its fire is one of the few magical flames that can heal rather than harm, and its tears possess unparalleled restorative properties. The danger, if it can be called that, lies in the fact that a phoenix cannot be owned, commanded, or coerced. It chooses its allegiance, and that choice is final. The cycle of rebirth is the phoenix's most famous and most misunderstood trait. When its body begins to age, or when it sustains an injury that would kill any other creature, the phoenix bursts into a sudden, self-conjured flame. Within moments, it is reduced to nothing more than a small, smouldering heap of ash. There is no visible life, no heartbeat, no spark. To the untrained eye, it is simply gone. But from that ash, after a period that can vary from hours to days, a tiny, wrinkled, featherless chick emerges. It is fragile and helpless at first, but it grows quickly, and within a matter of weeks, it has regained its full size and splendor. This is not a resurrection in the theological sense. The phoenix does not return from death in the way that inferior ghosts do. It is a continuous cycle, a loop of destruction and renewal that has no beginning and no end. Each incarnation carries the memories of its previous forms, and the phoenix's lifespan is effectively indefinite, provided it is allowed to undergo this process without interference. Some accounts suggest that a phoenix can live for centuries between burnings, while others believe the cycle is triggered more often, perhaps even at will. What is certain is that this rebirth is not a passive event. It is a choice, an act of will. The phoenix decides when to let go and when to begin again. The fire that consumes the phoenix is unlike any flame in the magical or muggle worlds. It is called phoenix fire, and it has properties that defy ordinary physics. This fire does not burn indiscriminately. It can be directed by the bird's intent, incinerating what the phoenix wishes to destroy while leaving everything else untouched. In the same breath, it can provide warmth without danger, or unleash a torrent of heat that reduces stone to powder. The most remarkable aspect of phoenix fire, however, is its ability to heal. When a phoenix directs its flame toward a wounded creature, the fire does not cause pain. Instead, it knits flesh, mends bone, and purges infection. This is not a magical spell cast by the bird, but an innate property of its very being. The tears of a phoenix carry the same healing essence, though in a more concentrated and gentle form. A single drop of phoenix tears can counteract almost any poison, heal deep cuts, and even restore sight. That is why phoenix tears are among the most sought after and rarest magical substances in existence. They cannot be harvested through cruelty, because a phoenix will not weep for its captor. They are a gift, freely given, and only when the bird feels empathy or gratitude. The rarity of phoenix tears is matched only by the rarity of phoenix feather wand cores. There is no known method for persuading a phoenix to donate its feathers. They must be offered willingly, and only a handful of phoenixes have ever been known to cooperate with wand makers. The most famous of these is the phoenix who gave feathers to Garrick Ollivander, the greatest wand maker of his age. Those feathers became the cores for two wands of extraordinary power and destiny. One of them chose Tom Riddle, the boy who would become Lord Voldemort. The other chose Harry Potter. That single fact, that the same phoenix willingly contributed to both the hero and the villain, is a testament to the bird's neutrality. A phoenix does not judge based on morality. It sees the potential, the force of will, and the capacity for greatness, whether that greatness is turned toward light or darkness. And once it has given a feather, it never repeats that gift to another wand. Those two wands, the yew wand of Voldemort and the holly wand of Harry, became brothers in a way that bound their destinies together. But the phoenix that gave those feathers was not a random bird. Its name, as revealed in the Chronicles of Hogwarts, was Fawkes. And Fawkes did not simply donate a feather and disappear. He chose to bond with a wizard, one of the most remarkable in history, Albus Dumbledore. This was not a master and pet relationship, nor was it a servant and master arrangement. Fawkes and Dumbledore were companions, equals in a partnership that transcended the usual boundaries between human and magical creature. Dumbledore understood a phoenix could not be controlled. He earned Fawkes' loyalty through patience, wisdom, and something deeper, a shared understanding of the weight of sacrifice. Fawkes was present at nearly every major turning point in Dumbledore's life, from the defeat of Grindelwald to the darkest days of the First Wizarding War. But perhaps the moment that best illustrates the bond between them occurred in the Chamber of Secrets during Harry Potter's second year at Hogwarts. Harry had descended into that ancient, snake-haunted chamber to rescue Ginny Weasley from the memory of Tom Riddle. He faced the basilisk, the king of serpents, a creature whose gaze could kill instantly, and he was utterly alone, armed only with a wand he could barely control. But at the moment of greatest crisis, when the basilisk's venomous fangs were about to strike, a burst of flame and song filled the chamber. Fawkes had arrived. He had flown through the depths of Hogwarts, answering Dumbledore's unspoken call to aid the boy who had shown loyalty and courage. Fawkes blinded the basilisk by pecking out its eyes, giving Harry a fighting chance. And when Harry was pierced by the basilisk's fang, poisoned and dying, Fawkes wept onto the wound. His tears, the same tears that can heal any harm, closed the gash, drove out the venom, and brought Harry back from the brink of death. Fawkes did not act out of command. He acted out of choice. He had chosen Harry as well, because Harry carried the essence of the wand that shared Fawkes' feather. That moment cemented Fawkes not just as Dumbledore's familiar, but as a guardian of Hogwarts and a symbol of hope. When Dumbledore died, Fawkes performed his final act of devotion. At the funeral, as the flames rose from the white marble tomb, Fawkes sang a lament so pure and sorrowful that even the darkest hearts paused to listen. Then he flew away, vanishing into the sky, never to be seen at Hogwarts again. That was the nature of his loyalty. absolute until the end, but then released. A phoenix does not linger in grief. It burns and it rises anew. The healing power of phoenix tears is not just a myth repeated in old texts. It is a documented phenomenon, studied by the ministry's most careful researchers. Yet even they cannot explain why the tears hold such potency. It is as if the phoenix's own experience of death and renewal infuses its body with the essence of life. Every tear is a condensation of that cycle, a miniature rebirth in liquid form. There are only a handful of recorded instances where phoenix tears have been used in the modern era, and each time the results were miraculous. The rarity of the tears is compounded by the rarity of the birds themselves. There is no known breeding program for phoenixes, no reserve where they can be kept. They appear where they will, often in times of great magical need, and they depart just as mysteriously. The last confirmed sighting of a wild phoenix in Britain occurred in the late 19th century, before Fawkes made his allegiance known. It is entirely possible that Fawkes was the only phoenix in the country for most of the 20th century. But the story of the noble phoenix is not merely a tale of one bird. It is a reminder that some creatures in the wizarding world are not tools to be exploited or monsters to be feared. They are beings of immense wisdom and power, existing on a plane that we can only glimpse. The phoenix teaches us that destruction is not an ending, but a transformation. That fire can purify as easily as it can consume, and that the most powerful magic is not cast with a wand. It is born from the heart of a creature that has died 1,000 times and chosen to live again. And now, we will leave the skies of rebirth and plunge into the dark, still waters of a Scottish loch. There, beneath the surface, lurks a creature whose nature is as deceptive as the ripples it leaves behind. The Kelpie is waiting, and the mystery of Loch Ness is far older than any legend you have ever heard. Before we dive deeper into this incredible journey, I'm curious. Where in the world are you watching this from? Drop a comment below and let our global community know. And if you're finding this as mind-blowing as I am, hit that like button to help more people discover this story. From the ashes of the phoenix, we turn to the deep, dark waters where legends lurk just beneath the surface. There is a creature that embodies the very tension between the magical world and the muggle world. A shapeshifter that has haunted human folklore for centuries. You have heard its story, even if you never knew its true name. It is the reason sailors speak of phantom horses that lure travelers to a watery grave. It is the heart of the mystery that keeps tourists flocking to a certain Scottish loch. But what you think you know is only a reflection. The truth is far more dangerous. This is the Kelpie, and to understand it is to understand why the Ministry of Magic spends so many sleepless nights trying to keep the two worlds from colliding. The Kelpie is not a single creature. The name describes a species of aquatic shapeshifter found in lakes and rivers across the British Isles, but especially in Scotland and Ireland. In its natural form, it appears as a majestic horse, usually black or white, with a flowing mane that seems to weave with the currents. But that beauty is a trap. Anyone foolish enough to mount the creature finds themselves stuck to its hide by a magical adhesion, as if the very water has turned to glue. The Kelpie then dives back into its watery domain, dragging the rider down to drown. This is the core of its legend. But the Kelpie is far more versatile than a simple horse-shaped predator. It can also take the form of a handsome young man or woman, luring unsuspecting victims close, before transforming back and pulling them under. Some accounts describe it as a shaggy pony, or even a sea serpent, depending on the region and the storyteller. And this is where the overlap with Muggle folklore becomes so fascinating. The most famous water-dwelling mystery in the world is the Loch Ness Monster. For decades, blurry photographs and sonar readings have kept the legend alive. But what if I told you that the Ministry of Magic knows exactly what is in Loch Ness, and it is not a plesiosaur? In the wizarding world, Loch Ness is a protected site. The creature spotted so often by Muggles is actually a Kelpie, one of the largest on record. The Ministry classifies it as a quadruple X creature, meaning dangerous and requiring specialist knowledge. But the real challenge is not controlling the beast. It is controlling the evidence. Every time a muggle catches a glimpse of the Kelpie's serpentine form as it surfaces, or hears an unearthly whinny echo across the water, the Obliviators are dispatched. Teams from the Ministry's Department for the Regulation and Control of Magical Creatures work alongside the Improper Use of Magic Office to ensure that the International Statute of Secrecy remains intact. They plant false scientific explanations. They doctor photographs. They even stage hoaxes to discredit the idea of a real monster. The famous Surgeon's photograph from 1934. That was a Ministry-assisted fabrication designed to make believers look foolish. But the Kelpie itself is not malicious in the way a basilisk is. It is a predator, but it is also a creature of instinct. And like many magical beasts, it can be controlled if you know how. The traditional method of taming a Kelpie is called bridling. If you can slip a specially enchanted bridle over its head while it is in horse form, the creature becomes docile and obedient. It will serve as a powerful water steed, capable of traveling at incredible speeds across both land and water. There is a reason the most accomplished water wizards in magical history kept Kelpies in their stables. But the bridle must be crafted with precise charms, often silver-buckled and inscribed with runes that bind the creature's will without harming it. It is a delicate art. In the wrong hands, the bridle might fail, and the Kelpie will revert to its predatory nature instantly. This danger is what makes the Kelpie such a potent symbol of the Ministry's greatest struggle. The wizarding world is full of creatures that, by their very existence, threaten to expose magic to muggles. A dragon might be hidden in a reserve. A hippogriff might only be seen by those who know where to look. But a Kelpie lives right where muggles live. In their rivers, their lakes, their lochs. It is a constant simmering risk. And the Ministry has to manage that risk without ever admitting it exists. They maintain wards along certain bodies of water to repel Kelpies from popular muggle areas. They breed a subspecies known as the Lesser Kelpie that is less prone to shape-shifting. They even have a specialized branch of Obliviators who train exclusively in water-related memory modifications. The work is relentless. But the Kelpie also teaches us something profound about the nature of magical creatures. They are not simply monsters to be feared or pests to be hidden. They are living expressions of our world's hidden depth. Every muggle legend about a water horse, a lake serpent, or a drowning ghost has a kernel of magical truth. The Kelpie is that kernel. When you hear a story about a horse that ran into a lake and never came out, you are hearing a distorted memory of a real encounter. When a child in the Scottish Highlands is warned not to go near the water at dusk, that warning echoes centuries of practical knowledge passed down through generations who knew, without knowing why, that something terrible lived beneath the surface. And that is the great unspoken dialogue between the magical and muggle worlds. They are separated by the Statute of Secrecy, but they are bound by shared stories. The Kelpie is one of the most vivid threads in that tapestry. Up next, we will meet a creature whose greed is so legendary that it has become a symbol of treasure hunting itself. A small furry beast that will tunnel through your pockets and steal your heart, but who has also caused more international incidents than most dark wizards. That is the Niffler, and its story is far more complicated than you might expect. The Kelpie, as we learned, explains centuries of muggle folklore about water horses and drowning victims, but the Niffler, that irresistibly cute, long-snouted, burrowing creature, does something far more subtle. It explains a different kind of folklore, the myth of the magpie, the crow, the dragon that hoards gold, because deep in the genetic memory tells the Niffler one thing: shiny things are survival. To understand the Niffler, you have to travel back before the Ministry of Magic ever classified it, before Newt Scamander ever tucked one into his coat pocket and carried it across continents. The Niffler began as a pest, a burrowing pest Its ancestors lived in the dense, dark, damp soils of northern Europe and Britain, digging deep tunnels to escape predators and find grubs. But somewhere in its evolutionary line, something changed. It wasn't enough to survive on roots and insects. The niffler developed an overwhelming, almost magnetic attraction to anything that glittered. Gold, silver, jewels, coins, even the glint of a dewdrop on a blade of grass. It was a foraging adaptation gone wild, a behavioral mutation so powerful it rewired the creature's entire existence. Why? Because in the wizarding world, treasure is often buried. Ancient wizards and goblins hoarded their wealth underground, and the niffler's ancestors discovered that following the faint luminescence of buried gems meant a feast, not of food, but of magical energy. The more valuable the metal, the stronger the pull. Over centuries, this instinct hardened into an obsession. A niffler cannot help itself. Its brain, its very soul, is tuned to the frequency of shimmer, and that is exactly what made it so useful to Newt Scamander. Newt's niffler, whom he eventually named Teddy, is no ordinary specimen. Teddy is a master of chaos, a creature whose greed has been refined into an art form. We first saw him in New York in 1926 when he escaped from Newt's case and terrorized a jewelry store, but that was merely a display of instinct. Years later, during the global war against Gellert Grindelwald, Teddy's greed would become a weapon. Think about the nature of that conflict. Grindelwald, a visionary dark wizard, had amassed an army of followers and a network of spies. He operated from shadows and strongholds, protected by ancient magic and blood pacts. How do you infiltrate such a fortress? Not with an army, not with a wand. You use something small, something single-minded, and something utterly incapable of being bribed or reasoned with. You use a niffler. Newt deployed Teddy in a mission that remains classified in the magical historian's notes. But we know the outlines. The niffler was sent into Grindelwald's vault, a chamber filled with stolen treasures and enchanted objects. Teddy, driven by pure instinct, ignored the wards and the curses, squeezed through gaps no human could, and retrieved a specific locket, a Horcrux-like container that held a piece of Grindelwald's soul, or at least a key to his network. Without that locket, the blood pact that bound Grindelwald to Dumbledore could not be broken. Teddy, following his nose for shine, quite literally changed the course of the war. But here's the paradox. The niffler is not a hero. It has no loyalty, no sense of duty. It is a creature of pure appetite, and that is what makes the chaos it causes so dangerous. A single niffler can destroy a household in minutes, turning a tidy home into a heap of torn cushions and scattered silverware. They are adorable, with their black velvet fur and their curious button-like eyes, and that cuteness is a double-edged sword. Wizards underestimate them. They let them into their gardens, into their vaults, into their hearts, and then the niffler finds a single galleon, and within an hour, the entire neighborhood is missing its jewelry. The Ministry of Magic classifies the niffler as meaning harmless or maybe domesticated, but that classification is dangerously misleading. A niffler is not dangerous to life, but it is dangerous to order. It is dangerous to security. It is dangerous to anyone who thinks a pretty face and a wagging tail mean control. The niffler's greed is not a bad habit. It is a force of nature, as unstoppable as a river in flood. You cannot train it out of them. You can only manage it, redirect it, and hope you never lose track of them when a diamond is in the room. Newt Scamander understood this better than anyone. He loved Teddy precisely because of that imperfection. He knew that the niffler's greed was not a flaw but a feature, a gift that, when aimed correctly, could unlock doors no spell could open. But he also knew that the same instinct that cracked Grindelwald's vaults could just as easily crack a goblin's safe or a bride's wedding ring. The niffler is a living reminder that in the wizarding world, cuteness and chaos are never far apart. And if you think that's a dangerous combination, wait until we meet creatures that combine beauty with lethality, like the Chimera, whose lion's head and serpent's tail hide a cunning mind, and the Manticore, whose voice lures victims to their death. There is no ministry classification high enough for what they are capable of. The Niffler's greed is a relatively harmless obsession, a creature that burrows for shiny distractions, guided by instinct, not malice. But what happens when that instinct for creation is twisted? When a wizard decides to play God and stitch together the most lethal parts of different beasts? The result is not a treasure hunter, is a nightmare given form. Tonight we enter the darkest corner of magical genetics, the chimera and the manticore. These are not creatures you find in a textbook. They are the whispers that make even seasoned aurors shudder. The Ministry of Magic, for all its red tape and bureaucracy, had to act. It passed a total ban on experimental breeding, specifically the creation of new species. And the reason for that ban is written in the blood of every wizard who ever tried to cross a lion with something far, far worse. Let's start with the chimera first. The word itself comes from ancient myth, but in the wizarding world, it is terrifyingly real. A true chimera is not a natural hybrid. It is a forced fusion of a lion, a goat, and a dragon. Usually a dragon's head attached to the body of a lion, with a goat's head protruding from its back. Sometimes the tail is a serpent. Sometimes it breathes fire. What remains constant is the sheer instability of the creation. Unlike a hippogriff, which is a stable hybrid bred over centuries, a chimera is a violent anomaly. Its magical energy clashes within its own body, making it unpredictable, and the creature's pain is translated into blind aggression. Now, the manticore is a different kind of horror. Originating in Persian legend, the manticore in the wizarding world takes the form of a human-headed lion with a scorpion's tail. The head can speak and will bargain with prey, but its voice is a lure. While the chimera is pure chaos, the manticore is cunning. It uses its intelligence to trap wizards, then paralyze them with its sting. The venom is not instantly lethal. It is designed to keep the victim alive and screaming. Both the chimera and the manticore represent the rarest and most lethal hybrid beasts in the lore. They are not merely dangerous. They are existential threats to the wizarding community. And here is the chilling fact. There are 0 recorded instances of a wizard surviving a chimera encounter. Not one. The Ministry's archives, which are otherwise exhaustive, contain only death reports. The chimera does not leave witnesses. It does not take prisoners. It simply erases the wizard, often in flames or in pieces. The manticore is slightly more survivable if you can reach a countersting potion quickly, but most wizards who meet it either die or are left permanently crippled. Why such total lethality? The answer lies in the very nature of hybridization. Magical creatures are not built to be fused. When a wizard forces a dragon's fire sac into a lion's throat, the resulting creature's magical core becomes unstable. It cannot sustain itself for long. That instability makes it savage beyond reason. The chimera is not a predator. It is a magical suicide bomb. It fights with the desperation of a creature that knows it is dying, and it takes everything down with it. The manticore, of course, explored the theoretical ethics. Could these hybrids have been useful? Some argued for war creatures. But after the International Statute of Secrecy, the Ministry clamped down hard. A law was passed that made the deliberate creation of new species a Class A offence, punishable by life in Azkaban. Newt Scamander, in his later years, even wrote a scathing appendix condemning any wizard who attempted such experiments. He called it the sin of forced creation. But not every hybrid is evil. Some, like hippogriffs, are born of natural magic and mutual respect. The difference is consent. The hippogriff chooses to bond. The chimera is a monster built without choice, and that lack of consent is what makes it so dangerous. The soul of a chimera is fractured. It cannot be tamed. So why do these creatures still exist? Because some wizards, even today, are drawn to the power of forbidden creation. Dark wizards, especially during the first rise of Grindelwald, tried to weaponize manticores. They failed. The manticore's intelligence made it untrainable, and the chimera simply killed its creators. The lesson was learned in blood. Now, if you think a lion-goat dragon hybrid is the height of tampering, Wait until you hear what happens when you cross a manticore with a fire crab, but that is a story for another night. Our next chapter takes us into Hogwarts' own breeding program under Hagrid, a disaster so chaotic it nearly sent a professor to St. Mungo's. Chapter 14, The Blast-Ended Scroot Disaster. You will not want to miss that. For now, let the image of the Chimera fade. The Manticore's tail is still. The only hybrid sin has been named, and the Ministry's ban stands as a monument to the dangers of playing with magic beyond our understanding. Sleep tight, knowing that some creatures are best left uncreated. We just explored the rarest and most lethal hybrid beasts in the wizarding world. The Chimera, a creature so dangerous that no wizard has survived a recorded encounter, and the Manticore, whose sting and roar are equally fatal. But there is another hybrid, one that did not arise from ancient magic or a cursed lineage, but from the reckless heart of a single man, a man who loved monsters more than he understood them, and that experiment would become known as the Blast-Ended Scroot Disaster. In the autumn of 1994, Hogwarts' new Care of Magical Creatures class took a turn that left even the bravest students pale. Professor Rubeus Hagrid, newly appointed to the post and determined to make a lasting impression, unveiled a project he had been working on in secret. It was an illegal crossbreeding experiment, a pairing that no reputable breeder would ever attempt. He had taken a fire crab, a creature known for its jewel-encrusted shell, an explosive shell, and its docile temperament when properly handled, and crossed it with a manticore. The manticore, as we recall, is an XXX-rated beast with a scorpion's tail, a lion's body, and a human-like face. Its venom is instant death. Its aggression is legendary. And Hagrid thought that combining these two creatures would yield something interesting. What he got was the Blast-Ended Scroot, and the name alone should have been a warning. From the moment they hatched, and that was a violent, slimy spectacle, the Scroots were a disaster. They emerged from their eggs not as cute, fuzzy babies, but as pale, squirmy, lobster-like things with stings on both ends. They immediately began attacking one another and anything else that moved. Hagrid, beaming with pride, seemed to see only potential. He had bred them to be a challenge, a project that would teach his students about handling dangerous creatures. But the Scroots taught something else entirely. That unchecked ambition and a blind love for monsters can produce chaos. The rapid evolution of these creatures was alarming. Within weeks, they grew from the size of a small dog to the length of a full-grown crocodile. Their shells hardened into a thick, armoured casing that repelled most spells. Their stingers, now on both ends, could shoot a jet of fire from one side and a paralytic venom from the other. They were not trainable. They were not controllable. They ate each other when not fed, and they attacked students with a ferocious glee. One even dragged a student's cauldron across the grass during a lesson, and another bit into a boy's boot so hard it left marks for days. The Blast-Ended Scroots became a metaphor for Hagrid's reckless love of monsters. He never saw them as dangerous in the way others did. To him, they were misunderstood, powerful, and beautiful in their own terrifying way. He had built a creature that no one asked for, that no one could handle, and that ultimately had no place in the wizarding world. And yet he refused to see the failure. Instead, he entered them in the Triwizard Tournament's third task, using them as obstacles. They were not domesticated. They were not even semi-tame. They were pure, wild aggression, unleashed champions who had no training for such a bizarre threat. But perhaps the deepest tragedy of the Scroots is that they were a creation born of love. Hagrid loved monsters. He loved their power, their mystery, their danger. But he did not understand that some things should not be mixed, that some boundaries exist for a reason. The Chimera and Manticore were natural hybrids of terrible power, but they were born of ancient magic and dark intent. The Scroots were born of ignorance and affection, and that made them no less dangerous. They were a living example of how good intentions, when paired with ignorance and enthusiasm, create something that cannot be controlled. As the Scroots matured, they became a burden. They outgrew Hagrid's patch. They had to be moved to a more secluded area of the grounds. They began to attack each other until only a handful survived. And in the end, those that remained were released into the wild, or perhaps quietly disposed of by the ministry, because nothing else could be done. Hagrid never spoke of them again with the same joy. The light in his eyes dimmed a little when the subject came up. He had tried to create something wonderful, and all he had left was a story of failure and a scarred patch of grass near his hut. And yet, that reckless love would lead him to another creature, one that would truly capture his heart and the hearts of the wizarding world, a creature of such grace and loyalty that it could never be mistaken for a mistake, a creature that Hagrid would teach his students to respect, not fear. But before we meet that magnificent beast, we must understand why Hagrid's passion for monsters both blessed and cursed him. The next chapter will take us to the skies, where a creature of pride and dignity awaits, a creature that would bow only to the worthy. The majesty of the Hippogriff is coming, and it will change everything you thought you knew about trust between wizard and beast. And while the blast-ended Skrewts were Hagrid's worst experiment in terms of sheer unpredictability, they were not his first, nor his most famous. That distinction belongs to a creature of impossible grace, a being that embodies both the wild freedom of the sky and the ancient earth, a creature that demands respect before it offers anything in return. I am speaking, of course, of the Hippogriff. By the time Harry, Ron, and Hermione stepped into Hagrid's first Care of Magical Creatures lesson in the autumn of 1993, they expected something impressive. They did not expect a creature that could tear a man open with one talon and then preen its feathers as if nothing had happened. Hagrid, with his characteristic lack of caution, led them to a paddock where a creature stood, half horse, half eagle, its front legs ending in cruel claws, its head bearing the fierce beak and golden eyes of a bird of prey. This was Buckbeak, and the moment the students saw him, they understood that they were in the presence of something ancient and proud. The strict etiquette required to approach a wizard must observe when approaching a Buckbeak-class creature is not a matter of mere politeness. It is a survival instinct codified into ritual. You do not approach a hippogriff the way you would a horse or a dog. You do not stare into its eyes without blinking, without flinching. As the hippogriff reads deference in the stillness of your gaze, you bow low, not as a gesture of submission, but as an offering of trust. You wait, and only if the creature bows back, slowly, deliberately, with that terrible beak lowering, may you step forward and touch its plumage. Hagrid demonstrated this with a casualness that bordered on reckless. But for Harry, who had just survived a Dementor on the Hogwarts Express, the lesson was immediate and visceral. Bow to the creature, or it will kill you. That moment, Harry's first flight on Buckbeak, became one of the most transcendent scenes in the entire series. Flight has always been a symbol of freedom in the wizarding world, from broomsticks to thestrals. But nothing compares to the raw joy of riding a hippogriff. The wind tearing past your ears, the creature's powerful wings beating against the sky, the ground falling away as if it never mattered. For Harry, who had spent the summer trapped in the Dursleys' house, who had been haunted by the ghost of Sirius Black, who had felt the weight of his tragic past pressing down on him like a stone, that flight was a liberation. He was not the boy who lived up there. He was just a boy laughing, clinging to feathers, feeling the cold air in his lungs and the freedom of no walls, no rules, no fear. But the hippogriff's majesty is matched by its vulnerability in a world that fears what it does not understand. Buckbeak's story took a dark turn when Draco Malfoy, nursing a bruised ego and a wounded sense of superiority, deliberately ignored every rule of hippogriff etiquette. He approached Buckbeak without bowing, without meeting the creature's eyes, and when he insulted the hippogriff, Buckbeak slashed his arm open. The wound was not fatal, but it was enough. Malfoy's father, Lucius, used his influence to have Buckbeak declared a dangerous creature and the Committee for the Disposal of Dangerous Creatures was summoned to decide his fate. This committee, as corrupt as it was bureaucratic, existed not to protect wizards from creatures, but to serve the interests of the powerful. The hearing was a farce. Hagrid, already heartsore and desperate, watched as a committee of ministry officials, many of whom had never seen a hippogriff in the wild, voted to have Buckbeak executed. The legal battle for Buckbeak's life reveals a grim truth about the wizarding world. The ministry's classification system, those X's and XX's, is not a neutral measure of danger. It is a tool of convenience. A hippogriff is classified as XXX, meaning it requires specialist knowledge, but that classification can be weaponized against any creature that inconveniences a powerful family. Buckbeak was not a monster. He was a proud animal who responded to respect and cruelty in equal measure. But Lucius Malfoy saw an opportunity to humiliate Hagrid, to remind the half-giant of his place, and to demonstrate that even the most magnificent beast could be crushed by paperwork. The irony is that the same committee that condemned Buckbeak also revealed the cracks in the ministry's authority. The executioner McNair was eager to swing the axe, but he was thwarted not by law but by love. Harry and Hermione, using a time turner, looped back through the hours and saved Buckbeak just as the blade was about to fall. The hippogriff escaped into the night, and with him, the possibility of redemption for Sirius Black. Because Buckbeak did not just fly away. He flew to the top of the astronomy tower, where Sirius sat chained, awaiting the Dementor's kiss. And in that moment, flight became more than freedom. It became justice. Buckbeak carried Sirius into the darkness, and the two of them disappeared into the Forbidden Forest, fugitives bound by the same thread of unjust accusation. The hippogriff, who had been condemned to die for a crime he did not commit, became the instrument of salvation for a man who had also been condemned for a crime he did not commit. The parallel is not accidental. Both were victims of a system that valued appearances over truth. Both were saved by the courage of a few who refused to let the committee have the final word. When we think of the hippogriff, we think of the sky, the impossible blend of horse and eagle, of the proud bow that must be earned. But we must also think of the inhumane machinery that nearly destroyed Buckbeak, the corruption that sits at the heart of the ministry's creature department, the way fear and prejudice can turn a majestic beast into a condemned prisoner. The hippogriff is a lesson in the cost of bureaucracy. It is also a reminder that some creatures are too magnificent to be contained by paper. And yet, as we watch Buckbeak vanish into the night, we know that there are other creatures lurking beneath the surface of the world, creatures that hide in realms we cannot see. The hippogriff flies in the air, but what of those that swim in the deep, in the cold, dark waters where wizards rarely venture? What of the cities built beneath lakes, where voices echo through stone corridors and gills replace lungs? What of the treaty that binds two worlds together, a treaty as fragile as parchment, ancient as the first breath of magic? The hippogriff story ends with a flight into freedom. But for others, freedom is not so simple. For those who dwell in the hidden world of the Mer-people, the currents are shifting, and the silence of the deep is about to break. The legal battle for Buckbeak's life exposed something far darker than a hippogriff's temper. It showed us how the wizarding world decides which claims to champion justice, is often quick to condemn what it fails to understand. But that same world holds creatures whose very existence challenges the ministry cannot ignore. Creatures that dwell not in cages or paddocks, but in a realm so-called territories, whose borders extend far deeper than any paperwork can reach. And among these, perhaps the most misunderstood and the most politically fraught are the Mer-people. From the outside, them only rarely, a brief flash of silvery skin in the depths of the Great Lake, a haunting song that drifts up through the water during a Triwizard task. But when you look beneath the surface, literally and figuratively, you discover a civilization as ancient and as intricate as anything on land. The Mer-people are not a single unified species. They are divided into distinct tribes, each with its own dialect, its own customs, and its own fiercely guarded hunting grounds. We know of the freshwater tribes that inhabit lochs and lakes throughout Scotland and Ireland, and we know of the saltwater clans that patrol the coastlines around the British Isles and beyond. But the most intimate portrait of their society comes from Hogwarts' own Great Lake, a place that is far from a simple school pond. The Great Lake is a living microcosm of magical biodiversity. Beneath its dark and often frost-covered surface, a complex ecosystem has evolved over a millennium. Giant squid drift in the murky depths, their true nature still debated by wizarding naturalists. Grindylows lurk among the reeds, their long spindly fingers ready to pull the unwary down. And at the very heart of all this chaos, the merpeople have built a settlement that predates the castle itself. They were here before Hogwarts was founded, and they remain today not as tenants, but as cohabitants, bound by an ancient and unspoken truce. This is why the lake is so important to understanding the hidden world of the merpeople. It is a compressed version of the entire wizarding world a place where multiple intelligent species must share space, compete for resources, and maintain a fragile peace. And that brings us to the most delicate topic of all. In the wizarding world, the Ministry of Magic divides all non-human magical life into two categories: beings and beasts. A being is defined as any creature with sufficient intelligence to understand the laws of the magical community and to bear part of the responsibility in shaping those laws. Giants are beings, even if they live on the fringes. House elves are beings, even if they are often treated as property. Goblins are unquestionably beings, as they have their own language, their own banking system, and a long and bitter history of negotiation with wizards. But the merpeople sit in a strange and uncomfortable borderland. The Ministry has classed them as beings, but only after a long and contested debate. Why? Because their language is so different from Mermish, a series of screeches and clicks underwater that is incomprehensible to most humans. That some wizards argued they lacked true communication and therefore could not hold legal standing. It was a profoundly colonial assumption, one that dismissed an entire civilization simply because their method of speech did not match human expectations. The Ministry's approved norm. The reality is far more complex. The merpeople have an exquisitely complex social structure. Each tribe is led by a chieftain, usually the most experienced hunter or the eldest member of the family. But leadership is not inherited in the way wizarding titles are. It is earned through demonstrations of courage, often in the form of battles against predators, like the giant squid, or against rival tribes that contest fishing territories. And their language is far richer than any Ministry translator has ever given it credit for. Mermish consists of two distinct registers, one for underwater conversations, which rely heavily on high-frequency clicks that travel efficiently through water, and for surface interactions, where they adopt a slower, more guttural form that uses their human-like vocal cords. It is a dual language, made of bilingualism, that serves as a constant negotiation between two worlds. This linguistic dexterity implies a level of abstract thought and cultural adaptability that should settle any debate about their status as beings. Yet the merpeople remain a deeply private society. They do not seek out wizards. They do not send delegates to the Ministry. They do not ask for representation at the Wizengamot. Instead, they simply live their lives beneath the waves, tending to their underwater gardens of giant kelp and cultivating colonies of luminescent snails that provide both light and food. Their dwellings are carved into the bedrock of the lake bed, chamber after chamber of stone and shell, each entrance guarded by the skulls of Grindylows that have strayed too close. And when they have disputes, they settle them in ways that make the most vindictive wizarding legal battle look tame. The merpeople practice a form of trial by combat, not for murder or theft, but for matters of honor. If one merperson accuses another of a broken promise, they must face each other in a duel that is both physical and rhetorical. They fight with spears and speech. They thrust with tridents, but they also argue their case in rhythmic song. Each exchange a verse in a long and winding poem that the entire tribe judges. The winner is not the one who draws first blood, but the one who sings the truth more powerfully. And why do they sing? Because to the Mer people, the world is made of sound. Water conducts sound faster and farther than air does, and so their entire civilization is built around the vibration of the current. They can feel every footstep on the shore above. They can sense the heartbeat of a grindelow from half a mile away, and they can hear the stars. That is not a metaphor. The oldest Mer people legends speak of a time when their ancestors' rises and tides were dictated not by the moon, but by a celestial choir that sang from the heavens. The Mer people believe that those stars still sing today, even if their song is fainter than it once was. When a Merperson chieftain rises in the center of their village and begins the water ripples with the choral calls of the entire tribe, they are not just communicating, they are aligning themselves with that ancient cosmic harmony. It is a worldview that has no equivalent on land, and it is one of the reasons why they have always seemed so distant and unreachable to wizards, but they are not hostile. In fact, during the Triwizard Tournament, the Mer people at Hogwarts agreed to act as custodians of the hostages, a role they took with both seriousness and a certain theatrical flair. They sang to the champions as they swam down, not as a threat but as a test, to see who would turn the wood bounce off. They watched and they judged, and when Harry Potter used gillyweed to survive the deep, they did not interfere. They simply let him pass through their world, a brief and slightly clumsy guest whose presence they tolerated with the same quiet bemusement that they offer to the giant squid. Because to them, Harry was not a hero or a legend. He was just another surface dweller who had managed to hold his breath long enough to glimpse one of their songs. And that is the truth we must accept. The hidden world of the Mer people is not hidden because they want to be discovered. It is hidden because it exists on a different frequency, a different rhythm, a different understanding of what it means to be alive. They are beings without ambition. They are beings without greed. They are beings who live in the present moment, feeling every current of the water as it moves past their skin. And if we ever truly wish to understand them, we will have to stop shouting our own names into the lake and start listening to the sound that comes back. But the Mer people are not the only ancient civilization that walks, or rather gallops, in a world parallel to wizards. There is another tribe, one that does not live beneath the water, one that lives above it, under a dome of stars that they have studied for longer than any witch or wizard has even known how to count. In our next chapter, we will look up from the depths and raise our eyes toward the night sky, where the centaurs and the stars hold secrets, are the oldest and the most guarded of all. The Mer people of the Great Lake are not the only ancient race to dwell within the boundaries of Hogwarts. They share the grounds, the forests, the deep places with another culture far older than the castle itself, one that looks not to the water but to the sky. The centaurs of the Forbidden Forest have watched the stars turn for millennia, long before humans built their stone walls or their ministry of magic. To understand the centaur is to understand the word independence, not as a political stance, but as a fundamental truth of their existence. They are not merely resistant to classification by wizards. They reject the very premise that any outside authority could define them. The Ministry of Magic in its bureaucracy labels the centaur as a beast, a classification signified by the number XXX, meaning dangerous and requiring specialist knowledge. But the centaurs themselves consider this an insult of the highest order. In their eyes, they are not beasts, nor are they beings in the human sense. They are a race apart, a species that has chosen isolation not out of fear, but out of a deep, philosophical disdain for the chaos and short-sightedness of human affairs. The herd that roams the Forbidden Forest is fiercely territorial, not because they seek conflict, but because they view the forest as their sacred observatory. Every clearing, Every glade is aligned to a celestial chart known only to them. They read the movements of planets and stars, not as mere astronomy, but as a language of fate, a truth written in light that humans are too busy with their petty wars and magical experiments to decipher. This independence is absolute. When a wizard enters the forest, the centaurs watch from the shadows, patient and silent. They do not attack unless provoked, but they will not be commanded. Dolores Umbridge once attempted to demand their cooperation, a scene that ended with her being carried off into the depths, her ministry authority utterly meaningless under the eaves of the ancient trees. That moment captured everything. The centaurs do not recognize human law, and yet, for all their fierce isolation, one of their own broke the silence. Firenze was a member of the Forbidden Forest herd, a warrior in his own right, with a coat the colour of pale moonlight. When Lord Voldemort returned, when darkness began to gather over the wizarding world, Firenze saw something in the stars that troubled him. He believed that the fight against evil required intervention, that even the most aloof of races must sometimes step down from their celestial platforms to help the mortals struggling below. So he accepted Professor Dumbledore's offer to teach divination at Hogwarts, replacing the fraudulent Sybil Trelawney for a time. This choice cost him everything. The centaur herd, led by the proud and unbending Bane, declared Firenze a traitor. They did not see his actions as noble. They saw them as a betrayal of their most sacred principle, that centaurs do not serve humans, do not teach them, do not mingle. For the crime of helping, of sharing the star lore with young witches and wizards, Firenze was exiled. He was forced to live within the castle walls, unable to return to his family, his home, his herd. The tragedy is not that he was cast out. It is that he knew precisely what he was sacrificing and still made the choice. He became a bridge between two worlds, and in doing so, lost any world of his own. There is a deep irony in the centaur's story, as the Ministry sees it. They are classified XXX beasts, yet they possess intelligence, culture, and a language far older than any wizard tongue. They know of events before they happen, because the stars whisper futures that humans cannot hear. The refusal to be categorized is, in some ways, the most honest stance any creature could take against a system that reduces them to a symbol of danger. The centaurs are not dangerous because they want to harm. They are dangerous because they refuse to obey. As we move deeper into the shadowy corners of the wizarding world, we must confront a creature that operates under an entirely different philosophy. This being does not look to the stars. It does not debate classification. It does not have a herd to exile you from. It exists in the darkness between breaths, in the folds of a bed, in the silence of a room you thought was empty. Next, we will uncover the truth of the living shroud, the Lethifold. The centaurs of the Forbidden Forest taught us something important about the wizarding world's blind spots. They refuse to be classified, refuse to be reduced to a Ministry category, because they knew that some things are too wild, too ancient to be understood by human rules. But if the centaurs represent a proud refusal to be seen, there is another creature that operates on the exact opposite principle. It does not want to be seen. It has spent its entire existence is built around not being seen, and that perhaps is what makes it the most terrifying creature you have never seen on screen. I am talking about the Lethifold, known in some circles as the Living Shroud, and classified by the Ministry of Magic as a XXXX creature, which is the highest possible danger rating. But unlike dragons or basilisks, the Lethifold does not announce itself with fire or fangs. It moves through the world like a shadow made flesh, and it hunts you where you are most vulnerable. In your sleep, the Lethifold is native to tropical climates, particularly the dense jungles of Papua New Guinea. Newt Scamander describes it in Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them as a silent gliding creature that resembles a black cloak. But if you think of a normal cloak, imagine it moving without wind, without rustle, without any sound at all. It drifts through the night like a patch of darkness that has decided to move on its own, and it is drawn to sleeping victims with an unerring instinct that no one fully understands. How the letterfold hunts sleeping victims is a process so efficient it leaves no trace behind. The creature approaches a house, slides under the door, through the smallest crack, because its body is not truly solid in the way we understand solidity. It can compress itself to the thickness of a sheet of parchment. Then it spreads itself over the face of the sleeping person and begins to smother them. But it is not simply suffocation. The letterfold does not just block the air, it digests its prey as it suffocates them. The victim cannot cry out because the creature covers their mouth and nose. They cannot move because the pressure of the creature immobilizes them like a blanket of pure weight. And when the process is complete, when the victim has stopped breathing, the letterfold continues to digest, absorbing every trace of the body until nothing is left. No bones, no blood, no evidence that the person ever existed. The bed appears empty, the room appears undisturbed, and the creature simply glides away into the darkness, leaving behind only an empty house and a mystery that no Muggle investigator could ever solve. There is only one known defense against the letterfold, the Patronus charm. A corporeal Patronus, cast with a truly happy memory, is the only thing that can drive it off. Newt Scamander himself survived an encounter in Papua New Guinea when his Patronus, a large dog, scared the creature away. But if you do not have a Patronus, and you cannot read your wand because you are unconscious, then you are simply gone. No one will even know you are missing until someone comes looking for you the next morning. That is the horror of the letterfold. It is not a monster you can face in a duel. It is not a creature you can outrun. It is a predator of the quietest moments, the most intimate vulnerability. And because it leaves no trace, most of its attacks go completely unrecorded. How many wizards have simply vanished from their beds over the centuries? With no explanation, no struggle, nothing. The letterfold does not care about your reputation. It does not care if you're a powerful Auror or a famous hero. It only cares that you are sleeping. And yet, despite being one of the deadliest creatures in the entire wizarding world, the letterfold has never appeared in any major wizarding film or book beyond the encyclopedia. It's a ghost of the lore, a terrifying concept that lurks in the background, waiting to be discovered by those who dig deeper. The most terrifying creature you have never seen on screen, and perhaps that is for the best. Some nightmares are better left unseen. But if you think the letterfold is terrifying, wait until you encounter the creature that explodes when you provoke it. The Erumpent's explosive power is not a metaphor. It is a physical, biological, and catastrophically real phenomenon that can level a building and kill everyone inside. That is the only creature that can follow this chapter can lead to. As if you thought the letterfold was a silent death, the Erumpent is a very loud one, and it is coming next. The letterfold slips through the night like a shadow made of malice, silent and suffocating. But tonight we leave that living shroud behind and turn our attention to a creature that does not creep, does not hide, but carries within its own body the means of its own explosive destruction. The Erumpent. To look at an Erumpent is to see power made flesh, a massive grey beast, thickly built, with a sloping back and a single long spiralling horn that juts from its forehead like a lance of bone and magic. But that horn is not merely a weapon for goring or intimidation. It is a biological marvel, a living chemical reactor. The horn of an Erumpent is hollow, filled with a volatile fluid that, when injected into any living tissue, causes an immediate and violent reaction. The fluid, often described as a sort of magical venom, does not simply poison the bloodstream. It acts like a catalyst for spontaneous combustion. Once inside a victim, it triggers an explosive chain reaction that expands outward, rupturing cells, igniting internal gases, and ultimately causing the creature or object to detonate from the inside out. The Ministry of Magic permeates every aspect of the Erumpent's biology, and the horn's fluid is one of the most unstable substances known to wizardkind. Even a small scratch from an Erumpent horn can lead to a slow, creeping inflation of the affected area, followed by a detonation that can level sizes everything within a considerable radius. The Ministry of Magic classifies the Erumpent as a XXX creature, dangerous and requiring specialist knowledge. And that rating is not for its temperament alone. An Erumpent is not naturally aggressive. It does not hunt wizards. It is a herbivore, content to roam the plains of Africa with its herd. But it is also fiercely territorial during mating season, and if provoked, it will charge. And that charge, with that horn, is a death sentence wrapped in an explosion, which brings us to a specific and rather unfortunate incident in the canon of magical creature lore, the Lovegood household. Xenophilius Lovegood, father of Luna Lovegood, was a man of eccentric beliefs and unshakable conviction in the existence of mythical beasts, the rest of the wizarding world considered imaginary. He was convinced, for example, that the crumple-horned snorkack was a real creature, and he spent years searching for evidence of its existence. In his quest, he corresponded with other enthusiasts and even travelled to far-flung locations. But one day, while exploring the African savannah with a supposed lead, he encountered something that he, in his hopeful obsession, immediately misidentified. He found an Erumpent. Now it is important to understand that from a distance, an Erumpent can indeed be mistaken for something else. Its single twisting horn, its bulk, its slow deliberate gait. For a man who had spent his life looking for a mythical beast with a crumpled horn, a living Erumpent must have seemed like a miraculous discovery. Xenophilius, perhaps unable to see beyond his own desire, failed to recognize the ministry warnings, the telltale shimmer of volatile fluid along the horn's grooves. He saw only a snorkack, and he did what any dedicated naturalist would do. He tried to bring a specimen home. The exact sequence of events is murky, but we know that Xenophilius managed to lure the Erumpent, or perhaps it was a stray individual, separated from its herd onto his property, near the Lovegood home in Ottery St. Catchpole. He kept it in a makeshift enclosure, convinced he was housing a docile, misunderstood creature. Luna, of course, knew better. She recognized the Erumpent for what it was, but by the time she alerted her father, the damage was already done. The Erumpent, stressed and confined, began to secrete the volatile fluid in greater quantities. The horn had been agitated, perhaps jostled or scratched during the capture. A single droplet of the fluid leaked onto the wooden structure of the enclosure, and the explosion was inevitable. The Lovegood house did not burn down, but it came very close. The blast ripped through the garden, levelling the shed Xenophilius had built, sending debris across the lawn. The Erumpent itself mercifully did not detonate. It fled and was later recaptured by ministry officials. But the incident left Xenophilius shaken and financially drained, and it cemented in the wizarding public's mind the danger of mistaking a real, lethal beast for a figment of imagination. The crumple-horned snorkack, if it ever existed, was never proven, but the Erumpent and its explosive potential was all too real. This is why conservation efforts for the Erumpent are so carefully regulated. The species is not endangered species list for magical creatures includes the Erumpent, not because its numbers are few, but because its destruction is so easy to cause. Wizards who attempt to capture or tame them often end up dead or maimed. The international trade in Erumpent horns is strictly forbidden by the Office of Magical Creatures, and for good reason. A single horn, if improperly handled, could level a small village. The fluid extracted from a horn is used in certain advanced potions, but only by licensed experts in heavily enchanted facilities. The ministry maintains a small preserve in the African savannah, where Erumpents roam freely, monitored by wardens who understand the delicate balance of approaching such a creature. They are left alone because any interference risks a catastrophe. So the Erumpent stands as a reminder that the most dangerous beasts are not always the ones that hunt you. Sometimes they are the ones that carry their own destruction within them, and all it takes is a single mistake to turn a peaceful giant into a living bomb. And as we watch the evening light fade over the African preserve, we understand that some creatures are best admired from a distance, their power respected, their nature left untouched. But not all magical beings are so simple to classify. What about creatures that serve a role that is not wild, but domestic? What about a creature that binds its will to a master, that lives to serve, that is bound by magic far older and far more complex than mere obedience? That story begins with a single thread of silver light, a tiny creature with enormous ears, and a bond that cannot be broken by any wand. I hope you're as amazed by this as I am. If you want to stay updated on more content like this, make sure to subscribe and join our community of curious minds. Trust me, what's coming next will challenge everything you thought you knew. The previous chapter ended with the erumpent at the Lovegood house, a ticking bomb disguised as a rare creature. That explosion, both literal and figurative, reminds us how easily the wizarding world misunderstands magical beings around them. And nowhere is that misunderstanding more tragic, more ingrained, than with the creatures bound up in the small, wrinkled hands of the house elf. Take a moment to consider the house elf you know best, Dobby. He arrives in Harry Potter's life not as a proud creature, but as a desperate one, wearing a filthy pillowcase, wringing his hands, punishing himself for every word that slips out. That self-inflicted pain is not natural, it is learned. It is the deepest scar of a system that has erased the very idea of what a house elf could be. For centuries, wizarding families have treated them as appliances. Animate, loyal, and utterly disposable. The Malfoys starve them. The Blacks chain them to the banister. And the Ministry classifies them as beasts, not beings. Under that same old classification system we have traced through so many episodes, that classification is not just a bureaucratic label, it is a legal shackle. But here is the uncomfortable truth. House elves are among the most powerful magical creatures ever to exist. Their magic does not come from a wand. It is not learned in lessons or channeled through wood and core. Their magic is innate, raw, and far older than the Ministry's rules. Think of what Dobby can do. He apparates inside Hogwarts, which is supposed to be impossible. He disarms Lucius Malfoy without uttering a single incantation. He can levitate an entire cake, banish objects, and even cast a permanent sticking charm on a portrait, all without a wand, without a spoken spell. That is not the magic of a servant. That is the magic of a being whose power has been deliberately stifled for centuries. So why do they obey? Why do they punish themselves for the very idea of freedom? The answer lies in the history of their enslavement, a history that runs deeper than any one family. House elves were not always bound. Legend tells of a time when they were free, powerful, and respected, creatures who shared the world with wizards, not as servants but as equals. But wizards, fearing that power warred against them, imprisoned them, and eventually bred obedience into their very bones. The bond forged then is maintained by tradition, by fear, and by the most insidious magic of all, the belief that servitude is their choice. The house elf that refuses to be freed is not stubborn. It is a survivor of a system that has convinced it that freedom is a punishment. Dobby broke that chain. He was not born rebellious. He was not given freedom by a kindly master. He chose it. He chose to betray the Malfoys, to warn Harry Potter, to accept the punishment and the wounds and the loneliness that came with it. And when he finally called himself a free elf, he did not become weak. He became more powerful than ever. His magic, the elf who had been beaten and humiliated, could now cross the boundaries of Hogwarts, could stand up to Lucius Malfoy with a flick of his fingers, could save the boy who had given him a sock. And then, in the darkest hour of the war, Dobby gave his life. He apparated into Malfoy Manor, a free elf to rescue prisoners. He died with Harry's name on his lips, a martyr not for a cause, but for the simple truth that no creature should be owned. His grave, dug by Harry's own hands, stands as a monument in the cliffs of Shell Cottage. But the fight was not over, because house elves are still silent. The ones at Hogwarts still bow and scrub and call themselves good elves. They still refuse wages and sick days and comfort, and that silence is the most haunting part of their story. It is a silence that asks us, as we drift towards sleep, as we consider the creatures we have met under the moon, what happens when a being so powerful could be free, but cannot bear to imagine it? That question lingers, as quiet as a soft horror, just beneath the surface of every kitchen and every gleaming plate. And in the shadows of that question, there is another creature, one that straddles the boundary between beast and human, between cursed and cured. They walk among wizards, but carry a secret that transforms them once a month. Their story is not one of chains, but of transformation and fear. It is the story of the wolf under the skin, the man, and the grey area in between. We talk about the magic bound into house elf servitude, the ancient, self-punishing contract that ties a creature's will to a family's name. And yet, for all that complexity, house elves stand firmly inside the circle of wizarding society. They are beings, recognized even if mistreated, but now step outside that circle into the grey, the place where the ministry draws a line, not by choice, but by terror. The place where a single bite can shatter a life, a career, a soul, the place of the werewolf. You see, lycanthropy is not a curse you choose. It is a disease, a violent transformation inflicted upon the victim. In the wizarding world, the werewolf is a paradox, a human who, once a month, becomes a mindless beast, classified by the ministry as a beast only during the full moon, but treated as a monster every single day of the year. And at the heart of that tragedy stands a man named Remus Lupin. The biology of lycanthropy is brutal. When a werewolf bites a human, the venom, or rather, the lycanthropic pathogen, spreads through the bloodstream. There is no known cure. Once infected, the sufferer will, from then on, transform at each full moon, regardless of their own will. The transformation is agonizing. Bones snap and reshape, teeth lengthen, the body contorts into a wolf-like form, but with some human traits retained. The werewolf in its transformed state is larger, more intelligent, and far more predatory than a natural wolf. Its bite is venomous, and even if a victim survives, they will carry the curse. This is not something you can control by willpower. It is a complete loss of self. For those few hours, the human mind of the person vanishes. Only the hunt remains. And that is why the ministry classifies werewolves as beasts during the full moon. Not because they are evil, but because they are utterly untamable in that state. A competent wizard cannot talk down a transformed werewolf. You cannot reason with a creature that does not recognize friend from foe. The ministry's classification system, that scale from X to XX, places the transformed werewolf firmly at XX, a known wizard killer. And in the eyes of the law, that classification follows the person, even when they are human. The stigma is permanent. The registry of werewolves, the requirement to report monthly locations, the loss of employment, the social exile, all of it stems from the terror of what the full moon brings. Remus Lupin lived this nightmare. He was bitten as a young boy by Fenrir Greyback, a werewolf who deliberately infected children to create an army of followers. Lupin's parents searched every remedy, consulted every healer. Nothing worked. And so he spent his childhood hidden, isolated, unable to turn cool, until Albus Dumbledore arranged for the Whomping Willow and the Shrieking Shack, a safe place to transform each month. Even at Hogwarts, his friends never knew the truth until years later. When they found out, they did not reject him. James, Sirius, and Peter became Animagi to keep him company, but the secret weighed on him constantly. He lived in fear of being discovered, because discovery meant expulsion, or worse. Later, when he became a professor at Hogwarts, the truth inevitably came out. A single mistake, forgetting to take his wolfsbane potion one night, then wandering the grounds, led to the revelation. But even the potion itself had come too late for many. The wolfsbane potion was invented relatively recently in wizarding history, and it was a breakthrough that transformed the lives of werewolves. In theory, the potion allows the sufferer to keep their human mind during the transformation. They still change shape, but the wolf does not take control. They can lie still, think, even speak, though the form remains dangerous. It is a profound step forward. But the potion is complex to brew, requires monthly doses, and is expensive. Many werewolves are often poor. Many cannot access it. Moreover, the stigma remained. Even with wolfsbane, werewolves were still feared, still shunned, still considered liabilities. For Looper, the potion allowed him to hold a job for a time, to teach, to fall in love with Nymphadora Tonks, to become a father. But the world was not kind. His condition was used against him at every turn. He was rejected from jobs, insulted, suspected of being dangerous. Fenrir Greyback used the curse to turn other wizards against their own kind. The Ministry's classification as a beast was never truly rescinded. It trapped werewolves in a grey area. They were human enough to be prosecuted for crimes, but beast enough to be denied basic rights. And then, across the mountains, there is another kind of colossal figure, one that wizards have tried to negotiate with, to control, to push away, not from the bite, but from the bloodline. Giants, they do not carry a curse. They carry a weight that topples empires. And their story is the next we must tell. The tragic biology of lycanthropy and the social stigma of Remus Lupin left a bitter taste in the mouth of the wizarding world. The werewolf, classified as a beast only during the full moon, was a creature caught between two worlds. But the wizarding world has always had a fondness for placing things in neat little boxes. They failed with werewolves, and they failed even more spectacularly with the giants. You see, the decline of the giant race and their retreat to the high peaks is a story written in blood and snow. It wasn't a single event, but a slow, grinding exile. Giants, powerful and proud, found themselves hunted by the very wizards who now claimed to catalogue them. They were too strong, too unpredictable, their magic too raw and wild. The Ministry of Magic, in its infinite wisdom, decided that the mountains were the only place for creatures who refused to bow. So the giants went further and further up, until they vanished into the thin air and jagged cliffs of the highest ranges. But they did not vanish. They endured, and within those frozen wastelands, they built a new world, a world built entirely on power. The brutal internal hierarchy of the giant colonies is not a political system, it is a physics system. The strongest giant rules, and the Gurg is the absolute apex of that physics. The Gurg is not elected. The Gurg is not born into the role. The Gurg simply crushes any rival into the stone, and the colony accepts the new reality. To be Gurg is to be untouchable, to eat the best food, to take the warmest shelter, and to decide who lives or dies with a grunt or a shrug. This was the world that Rubeus Hagrid and Madame Maxime stepped into on a secret mission for Albus Dumbledore. The political mission of Hagrid and Madame Maxime to recruit the Gurg was a desperate gamble in the Second Wizarding War. Dumbledore knew that if the giants sided with Lord Voldemort, it would be a devastating blow. The sheer physical force of a giant battalion could level wizarding villages. So Hagrid, with his half-giant heritage and his enormous heart, and Maxime with her regal bearing and her own hidden giant ancestry, travelled to the mountains. They were diplomats, but their embassy was a cave, and their negotiating table was a pile of bones. They found the colony in a state of raw primal tension. The current Gurg was a brute named Carcass, a giant so large he made Hagrid look like a garden gnome. Hagrid brought gifts, mead and axes, a gesture of friendship, but in the brutal internal hierarchy of the giant colonies, gifts can look like weakness. The other giants watched, assessing. They saw two half-breeds trying to speak for wizards, and they sneered. Carcass, however, was intrigued. He liked the mead. He liked the axes. For a moment, the mission seemed possible. Hagrid thought he could win them over. But diplomacy among giants is a fragile thing. A rival giant, a massive brute named Golgamath, saw an opportunity. Power is the only currency that matters, and Golgamath wanted to collect. One night, in the darkness of the peaks, the colony turned. Golgamath challenged Carcass, and the new Gurg was decided not by a vote, but by a brutal, earth-shaking execution. Carcass fell and Golgamath rose, and Golgamath had no interest in Dumbledore's offer. He had already been courted by dark wizards. The mission failed. Hagrid and Maxime barely escaped with their lives, the howls of the triumphant giants echoing behind them as they fled down the icy slopes. The decline of the giant race and their retreat to the high peaks is not just a story of exile. It is a lesson in the unforgiving nature of that world. The giants are not evil in the way a basilisk is evil. They are a force of nature, a hammer that will swing for whoever holds it. And with Golgamath as the new Gurg, that hammer was now in the service of darkness. But there are other kinds of rage, other kinds of power that do not live in the mountains. They live inside the quietest, most fragile vessels. They build not in stone, but in silence, waiting for a single crack to escape. The Obscurus is not a beast you can find in a nest or a cave. It is a shadow that grows in the soul, and its explosion can tear a city apart. That is the next hidden terror we must understand. From the retreating giants in their mountain fortresses, our story takes a sharp, dark turn inward, not to a creature of flesh and scale, but to a force born entirely from the abuse of magic itself. It is a shadow with teeth, a storm trapped in a bottle, a child's worst nightmare given form by their own repressed power. It is a creature that has no official housing in the ministry textbook, because the ministry would rather pretend it does not exist. It is a shame to them, a reminder of their greatest collective failure. It is the Obscurus. An Obscurus is not a beast you can find in a forest or a cave. It is a parasitic, predatory magical force that manifests when a young witch or wizard is forced to suppress their abilities. A magic denied its natural outlet turns inward. It festers. It becomes sentient rage. It becomes a shadow that lives in the soul of its host, the Obscurial. Newt Scamander theorized that the condition only truly takes root in children who are deeply traumatized, who hide their magic out of sheer terror. The Obscurus feeds on that terror. It grows stronger with every denial, every swallowed word, of every burst of accidental magic that is met with a beating instead of understanding, until the child can no longer contain the storm within. This brings us to the single most devastating example of an Obscurial in modern history, and the tragedy of Credence Barebone. New York City, 1926. Credence was not a secret wizard in a proud family. He was an orphan raised by the Second Selmas, a fanatical organization dedicated to exposing and destroying witches. Mary Lou Barebone did not just discipline Credence. She terrorized him. She beat the magic out of him, or tried to. But magic does not die. It waits. It grows. And in the dark confines of Credence's soul, it twisted into something monstrous. The Obscurus inside him was ancient, far older and more powerful than the boy himself, because it carried the weight of generations of suppressed magical children. When the Obscurus finally broke free, it was not a flicker of accidental magic. It was a cataclysm. It ripped through the streets of New York City, shattering skyscrapers, tearing up the subway tunnels, and terrifying the nomad population into a frenzy. It was a black, howling tempest of pure destruction. MacUSA, the American magical government, was thrown into complete chaos. They had no idea how to fight a creature made of grief and rage. The Obscurus was not just destroying the city, it was destroying itself in its agony, radiating unchecked, uncontrolled power. The tragedy is that Credence, the boy, was essentially drowning in the darkness. The creature was a desperate cry for help that could only speak in destruction. Why is the Obscurus the ultimate consequence of magical intolerance? Look at the fate of the Obscurial. The host almost never survives past the age of 10. The pressure of containing such a force shreds their body and mind from the inside. The very people who try to stamp out magic create the most terrifying, uncontrollable proof of its existence. The wizarding world, in its secrecy and fear of exposure, has historically failed these children. It is the darkest artifact of a society built on hiding, proving that when love and acceptance are absent, magic does not disappear, it becomes a monster. The only known response from authority has historically been isolation or euthanasia. Newt Scamander, in his profound empathy, saw the creature not as a threat to be destroyed, but as a wounded thing in need of care. But for every Obscurial saved, How many were simply erased from the pages of history? The storm that Credence unleashed over New York was eventually quieted. But the memory of that evening could not be simply wished away. To solve this crisis of mass exposure, the Magical Congress of the United States deployed a specific and powerful creature to blanket the entire city in amnesia. The swooping evil delivered the venom, yes, but its venom needed a catalyst to disperse across millions of minds. It needed the fury of a weather event, and that catalyst was provided by a creature of immense power and majesty, a creature whose very name commands the sky. Up next, we look at the entity that swept across New York City and cleansed the scene of the Obscurus's wrath. Chapter 24, The Thunderbird and the Storm. We ended the last chapter in the shadow of a shattered city, with the tragedy of Credence Barebone and the destructive force of an Obscurus made manifest. That was a story of magic turned inward, a violent storm born from suppression and fear. But what happens when magic is not a parasite, but a sovereign of the sky? What happens when the storm has wings and a will of its own? The Thunderbird is not just a creature that controls the weather. It is the embodiment of it. In the lore of the wizarding world and of the indigenous peoples of North America who knew it long before any European set foot on the continent, this bird is a force of nature. It is classified as a 4X creature, which means it is dangerous and requires specialist knowledge. But that classification feels almost like an understatement. It is not dangerous in the way a basilisk is dangerous, with a gaze that kills. The Thunderbird is dangerous in the way a hurricane is dangerous. It is majestic, awe-inspiring, and utterly indifferent to the small concerns of the creatures below its flight path. Its physical form is staggering. A Thunderbird can be immense, with a wingspan that darkens the sky. Its feathers shimmer, not with iridescence like a peacock, but with the texture of storm clouds, lit by the electric charge of a pending lightning strike. When it flies, it creates rain, and when it is agitated, it brings the full fury of the tempest. But this is not a random act. The Thunderbird is believed to have a deep sense of justice. It senses danger, it senses wrongdoing, and its storms follow its instincts. It is a guardian, a sentinel of the natural world. Now, let us follow the flight of one specific Thunderbird, a creature named Frank. And to understand Frank, we have to understand a man named Gellert Grindelwald, the dark wizard who sought to dominate the world in the 1920s. Grindelwald had a vision, a horrifyingly clear vision of the Second World War, of destruction on a scale that no wizard had ever foreseen. He was not trying to prevent it, he was trying to use it. And to secure his power, he acquired Frank. He did not tame Frank. You cannot tame a Thunderbird. He contained him. He kept him chained, illegally, in a subterranean vault beneath the city of New York. Imagine that. A god of the skies, a creature that commands lightning, locked in a cage of iron and magic, deep under a metropolis of millions. The city above went about its business, unaware that a storm was being held prisoner in their basement. Then came Newt Scamander. Newt, the magizoologist, the man who understood creatures not as weapons but as beings. He found Frank in Grindelwald's lair. He freed him. And here is where the story becomes something truly breathtaking. Because Newt did not just open the cage and let Frank fly away. He released Frank into the night sky above New York City. And a single creature, one Thunderbird, was about to wipe the memory of an entire city. Because Frank was angry. He had been imprisoned, abused, and his power was coiled like a spring. As he rose into the air, the sky shattered. Lightning forked across the heavens. Thunder rolled not like a sound, but like a physical force. The clouds gathered in a spiral, and then came the rain. It was not a normal rain. It was a memory charm, a potion, a deluge of obliviation. Newt had laced Frank's nest with a powerful draught of the forgetfulness potion. When the Thunderbird took flight and called the storm, the potion was vaporized and spread across the entire city. And so, the great obliviation of New York happened. Thousands of nomads, muggles in American parlance, looked up at the storm, felt the rain on their skin, and forgot. Every sighting of magic, Every memory of the chaos Grindelwald had caused was washed away. A single creature, acting on instinct, became the instrument of the largest single memory modification in magical history. Think about that. The power of a Thunderbird is not just in its lightning, but in its ability to rewrite the historical record of an entire city in a single downpour. It is a creature of such immense magical potency that it can serve as a delivery system for a spell that would take 100 Obliviators a week to perform. This is the link between the Thunderbird and the land. It is why it is so deeply tied to the Ilvermorny School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Ilvermorny, the North American School of Magic, was founded by Isolde Sayre and her Nomad husband, James Stewart, and in their founding story, they encountered a Thunderbird. This bird, which they eventually named after the Pukwudgie who befriended them, became one of the 4 houses of the school. The Thunderbird house represents the soul of a wizard who is an adventurer. The house crest itself is the Thunderbird, and the students of Thunderbird are said to favour courage and bold action. This is not a mere symbol. It is a reverence for a creature that represents the wild, untamed magic of the continent itself. The Thunderbird is to North America what the dragon is to Europe, a living landmark of magical history. When you hear the call of a Thunderbird, you are hearing the echo of an ancient land. It is a call that respects no border, no law made by men. It only respects the sky and the justice of the storm. And speaking of creatures that respect their own rules and their own power, we must soon turn our eyes eastward to the mountains of China, where legend tells of a cat-like beast with a striped tail and a roar that can tear the very fabric of space. Up next, in Chapter 25, The Zowu and the Cat Beasts, we will explore the creature that could stretch its limbs across entire provinces, and the other feline wonders that lurk in the shadows of the wizarding world. You will not want to miss the secrets of the cat-like creatures that even Newt Scamander found hard to handle. The Thunderbird released a storm so potent it erased an entire city's memory, a feat of magic that seems almost impossible to contain. But where the Thunderbird rules the skies with raw elemental fury and atmospheric force, there exists a creature whose power is far more focused, far more devastating in its speed and precision. The Chinese Zowu is a beast that does not need to summon lightning to command your attention. It simply moves. In the heart of Paris, during the dark days of Grindelwald's rise, Newt Scamander faced a Zowu that had been freed from a circus. The creature was not malevolent, merely terrified and homesick. But its terror manifested as a hurricane of claws and muscle, tearing through the city with a speed that defied the laws of nature. The Zowu can travel 1,000 miles in a single day. In the confined streets of 1920s Paris, that speed became a weapon. It could appear and disappear in the same blink of an eye, leaving destruction in its wake that had no single source. Shop windows shattered, carriages overturned, and the only trace left behind was a blur of colour, a shimmering orange and gold-striped body, long as a train carriage, with a mane that rippled like liquid fire. The Zowu is classified as a 5X beast, a known wizard killer, but its classification does not come from cruelty. It comes from sheer unstoppable power. In its native Chinese mountains, the Zowu is a legend so feared that entire villages would lock their doors and bar their windows at the sound of its roar. That roar carries for miles, a deep vibrating growl that shakes the ground underfoot. And when it decides to hunt, there is no escape. Its legs are so-called speed, is faster than any broom, faster than any apparition, faster than almost any spell you could follow. Yet Newt Scamander did not reach for his wand. He did not try to stun it, bind it, or banish it. Instead, he reached for a small, glittering object, a shiny gold bauble that had once belonged to the creature. The Zowu, in all its fury, was driven by a single emotion: loneliness. It had been ripped from its home, paraded in a cage, and now it wanted only to return to the mountains where it belonged. Newt's approach was not about dominance, it was about understanding. He knelt, held out the object, and spoke in a low, gentle voice. The Zowu's massive head, with eyes that burned like amber coals, slowed its frantic movement. It sniffed, it hesitated, and then it carefully took the offering, its claws retracting as it recognized something familiar. In that moment, the city-level threat became a homesick animal that simply needed a guide home. This is the core of Newt's philosophy. He does not see magical creatures as monsters to be subdued. He sees them as beings with emotions, instincts, and histories. The Zowu, for all its terrifying speed and power, was a creature of deep attachment. It had chosen a favourite keeper at the circus. It had a favourite toy. And when Newt could prove that he could be trusted, the Zowu allowed itself to be led back into its crate. Not because it was beaten, but because it was understood. The Zowu is often grouped with other feline magical creatures, though it is far larger and more powerful than most. The Kneazle is a small cat-like creature with unusually high intelligence, a talent for detecting untrustworthy people, and a distinctive lion-like tuft at the end of its tail. Kneazles are often kept as pets by witches and wizards. Prized for their loyalty and their ability to sense danger, they can interbreed with ordinary cats, producing half Kneazles like Crookshanks, Hermione Granger's famously clever cat who could sniff out Scabbers the rat long before anyone suspected he was actually Peter Pettigrew in disguise. Then there is the Matagot, a French magical cat said to be a trickster of the highest order. Matagots can change size at will, sometimes appearing as a harmless household pet, and at other times swelling to the size of a small pony with glowing red eyes. They are known to lead travelers astray, steal small objects, and cause mischief for those who do not show them proper respect. But like the Zowu, the Matagot responds to kindness. If treated well, it will guard a home and bring good fortune. The wizarding world has learned that feline creatures, from the modest Kneazle to the city-wrecking Zowu, share a common thread. They are independent, proud, and deeply emotional. Force will not earn their loyalty. Only patience and empathy can. Newt's handling of the Zowu is a masterclass in that principle. He knew that a creature moving at such impossible speed could never be caught by a spell, but a bond built on trust can travel just as fast. The Zowu's story reminds us that even the most terrifying beasts are not beyond the reach of compassion, and sometimes the most dangerous threat can be calmed with a gentle hand and a familiar token. This is the lesson that follows us into the next chapter, where a creature of an entirely different nature will challenge everything we assume about size, space, and the magic that bends both. The Okami is a serpentine bird that can grow or shrink to fill the available space, a living lesson that the boundaries of the world are not as fixed as we think, and when Newt encounters one, he will once again prove that the key to understanding a creature is not to fight its nature, but to work within it. The Zowu had been subdued not by force, but by the malice of a chain, but by the simple, irresistible pull of a toy, a cat toy of all things. Newt Scamander understood that even the most fearsome creature, a beast that could turn a city street into a disaster zone in seconds, still had the heart of a playful animal, and that understanding, that empathy, is the core of magizoology. But not every creature responds to kindness alone. Some require a different kind of cleverness, a different kind of containment, and some require a suitcase that can hold more than the laws of physics should allow. The Okami is a creature that defies those laws in the most literal way possible. Imagine a serpent, but with feathers, a bird but with a serpentine body. It has the wings and plumage of a magnificent plumage of a tropical bird, yet it slithers and coils like a snake. Its scales shimmer with a lustrous sheen of silver and green, and its eyes are large, intelligent, and eerily perceptive. You might see one in the jungles of the Far East, but only if it wants you to, because the Okami possesses a trait so rare and so baffling that it is the very reason for its name. It is Choronaptixis, Choronaptixis. It's a word that sounds like a spell, but it's a biological reality. It means the ability to grow or shrink to fit the available space. An Okami can, in a heartbeat, expand to the size of a dragon, its neck coiling up toward the canopy, its wings stretching wide enough to cast a shadow over a village. Or it can shrink, in the same breath, to the size of a parakeet, small enough to perch on a wizard's finger. This is not illusion. This is not magic in the traditional sense. This is its nature. Its body is not fixed. It is a creature of pure spatial adaptation. Think about what that means for a moment. Every other living thing, magical or mundane, is bound by the limits of its skeleton, its muscles, its skin. A cat cannot become a lion. A dragon cannot become a lizard. But the Occamy lives in a state of potential. It is a liquid in a solid world, and that makes it one of the most difficult creatures to study, to track, and to contain. You cannot build a cage for an Occamy, because if the cage is too large, it will simply shrink and slip through the bars. If the cage is too small, it will grow until the bars buckle and snap. The only way to house an Occamy is to give it a space that is, paradoxically, bigger on the inside than it is on the outside. And this is where we arrive at one of the most fascinating intersections of magical creatures and magical objects. Newt Scamander's suitcase, that battered, unassuming leather case that held a menagerie of beasts. It is famous, of course, for its extensive interior, a series of habitats that span Arctic tundra, arid deserts and lush forests. But the suitcase's enchantment is not unique to the Occamy itself. The Occamy does not merely live inside the suitcase. It is the reason the suitcase's internal physics work the way they do. You see, the Occamy is a creature that instinctively understands spatial compression. When it shrinks, it does not lose mass. It does not become less. It simply occupies less volume. The matter that makes up its body, the feathers, the scales, the bones, all of it is somehow folded into a denser state, a state that is not quite of this plane. The wizarding world has long known how to extend space. The extension charm, the undetectable extension charm, the tents that house of the Quidditch World Cup. But the Occamy does this naturally, and its eggs are the purest expression of this property. Occamy eggs are made of pure soft silver. They are not silver in colour. They are actual silver, and they are highly sought after on the black market. A single Occamy egg can fetch a fortune, not because it can be hatched, but because it is a magical ingredient of immense value. The silver of an Occamy egg, when ground into a powder, is used in potions that expand the mind, that enhance the efficacy of space-altering charms, that even allow a wizard to temporarily alter the dimensions of a room. But the value is also a curse. Poachers have hunted the Occamy to near extinction, the very trait that makes it so wondrous. Its ability to fit any space also makes it vulnerable. A poacher does not need a large cage. They simply need a small, strong container. And if they can capture an Occamy, they can force it to lay its eggs, then kill it for its feathers and its scales, which are prized for talismans and for the creation of enchanted jewelry. Newt faced the reality of this trade when he encountered an Occamy in New York. It had been smuggled, kept in a cramped, cruel box, and in that box it had grown as large as it could, not to fill the space, but to try to break it. The Occamy's instinct is to adapt, but when it perceives threat, it expands to intimidate. And that instinct is what led Newt to use his suitcase not as a container, but as a sanctuary. He opened the case, and the Occamy, seeing a creature of endless potential, took the invitation. It spiraled down into that impossible interior, where it could stretch its wings in a habitat that felt like a mountain forest, not a leather case. There is a quiet poetry in that. The Occamy, a being that can be enormous or tiny depending on its surroundings, finds peace only in a space that is not bound by ordinary rules. And in that peace, it proves something profound. That even the most and the spatial laws, the most confounding of creatures, can be understood if you see the world the way it does. The Occamy does not shrink because it is weak. It shrinks because it is wise. It knows when to be small, when to be invisible, when to fold itself into a pocket of safety, and it knows when to unfurl its full glory, to remind you that the tiniest of beings can contain the vastness of a sky. But there is another creature that understands this language of space and concealment. a creature that takes the idea of shrinking to an extreme where you cannot see it all. It is a beast that can hide from your eyes, not because it is small, but because it bends light around its body, becoming one with the air. The demiguise is a creature of silence of movement and a ghost of sight, a creature that always seems to be a step ahead of the world. And in the next chapter, we will learn how Newt tracked a demiguise through the streets of New York, and why that invisible primate held the key to a mystery that threatened to tear the magical and no-marge worlds apart. The Occamy taught us that space can be stretched. The demiguise will teach us that space can be ignored, and that sometimes the most dangerous thing is what you cannot see. The Occamy, with its ability to shrink or grow to fit any space, reminds us that the natural world of magic often defies our simplest expectations. But there is another creature whose gift is even more elusive, one that doesn't change its size, but its very presence in time. The demiguise is a beast that exists half a step ahead of the present, always just out of reach. To understand why this gentle, silver-haired primate is almost impossible to catch, you have to first understand the strange nature of its precognitive ability that defines it. Demiguises are native to the Far East, but they have been known to wizards across the globe for centuries. They are herbivores, peaceful by nature, spending their days grazing on fruits and leaves in dense forests. Their appearance is striking, a small, ape-like body covered in long, silky hair that shimmers like moonlit spider silk. But what sets them apart is not their fur, nor their large, mournful black eyes. It is the way they move. A demiguise does not react to danger, it anticipates it. The creature possesses a form of limited precognition, a kind of clairvoyance that allows it to see into the immediate future, usually no more than a few seconds ahead. This talent turns every attempt at capture into a comedy of errors. A wizard might think they have crept within arm's reach, but the demiguise has already seen the moment of capture before it happens. It slips away, not because it heard a footstep or smelled a stranger, but because it knew you were coming before you knew yourself. There are stories from the early days of magical zoology where entire expeditions spent weeks trying to corner a single demiguise. They built elaborate traps, cast silencing charms, even tried to obscure their own intentions with memory charms. Nothing worked. The creature simply sidestepped reality, vanishing into the underbrush as though it had never been there. And yet, despite this impossible ability, the demiguise has been hunted relentlessly. Why? Because its pelt is extraordinarily valuable. The silvery hair of a demiguise can be woven into invisibility cloaks. Now you may be thinking of the legendary Cloak of Invisibility, one of the 3 Deathly Hallows, which grants true imperceptibility and never fades. That is a unique artifact. But the cloaks made from demiguise hair are different. They offer invisibility, but it is temporary and it wears off over time. The hair loses its power and the cloak becomes opaque, no longer able to hide its wearer. This has led to a dark and secret trade. Poachers who track demiguise herds slaughter them for their fur and sell the pelts on the black market for exorbitant prices. The irony is heartbreaking. The demiguise is one of the most gentle creatures in the wizarding world. It has no natural aggression, no venom, no claws meant for combat. It does not hunt. It does not threaten. It only wants to live quietly, nibbling leaves in the sun and using its gift of foresight to avoid conflict altogether. But that very gift, the thing that makes it so extraordinary, is also what makes it so vulnerable, because a demiguise cannot hide its own value. Its fur is a currency of invisibility, and where there is such a commodity, there will always be those willing to take it by force. Newt Scamander, in his travels, encountered demiguises more than once. In his notes, he describes them as shy, almost melancholic creatures. He wrote that when a demiguise is captured, it often stops eating, as if grieving the loss of its freedom. They form strong bonds with their chosen companions, but those bonds are built on trust, not coercion. Newt himself managed to befriend one, a demiguise he named Humphrey, who later helped him in the containment of other beasts. It was a rare success story in a field where most attempts ended in tragedy, but the poaching continues. There are wizards who see the Demigwais not as a living being but as a resource, a temporary path to secrecy. In a world where the Ministry of Magic policies the use of invisibility spells and enchantments, a physical cloak made from natural materials is almost untraceable. It is a loophole in the magical legal system, and it has cost the lives of countless Demigwaises. The demand is fueled by wizards who want to move unseen, not for noble purposes but for theft, espionage, or worse. And so the peaceful primate, cursed with the ability to see its own impending doom seconds before it arrives, becomes a symbol of how greed can corrupt even the most miraculous gifts. Perhaps that is why the Demigwais remain so elusive, not just in body but in legend. Nearly every story about them ends the same way. The creature vanished, the hunter returned empty-handed, and the forest fell silent. There is a quiet lesson in that silence. It reminds us that some treasures are not meant to be caught, that to possess a Demigwai's pelt is to own a piece of stolen future, a future that would have been far kinder if left alone. As we think about these gentle, time-sighted beings, we must also consider the wizard who dedicated his life to understanding them, who saw their worth not in gold, but in wonder. The legacy of the magizoologist is a testament to what happens when we choose empathy over exploitation, when we study a creature not to take from it, but to learn from it. And in the next chapter, we will explore that legacy more deeply, uncovering the man who wrote the book on magical creatures and why his work still echoes through every forest, every nest, and every hidden corner of the wizarding world. But before we close the book on the Demigwais and the shadowy economies that trade in its silvery pelts, let's consider what that story really means. The Demigwais, with its precognitive eyes and its ability to vanish into the folds of time itself, is not just a creature that can never be caught. It is a living symbol of the unseen, the things we cannot predict, the futures we cannot control, and yet we still try to control them. The dark trade in Demigwais pelts is a perfect mirror of humanity's oldest flaw, the impulse to plunder the unknown rather than protect it. That impulse runs deep through the wizarding world, and it runs through the story of Harry Potter himself. When we first meet Harry, he is a boy who fears the unknown. The cupboard under the stairs, the letters that rip through the door, the giant who lifts him into a world of floating candles and talking portraits. Everything frightens him because everything is new, and in that new world, the creatures are the most terrifying of all. The first year teaching a boy who has been starved of wonder, well, everything, that the world beyond his cupboard is full of things that can hurt him. The troll in the dungeon, the three-headed dog guarding a trapdoor, the venomous fangs of a basilisk waiting in the dark. Every creature Harry encounters in his early years is a threat, a monster to be outrun or outwitted, and that is the natural reaction of a child who has only ever known survival. Fear the thing that might kill you, but something begins to shift. It starts perhaps with Hagrid. Hagrid gives Harry a snowy owl named Hedwig, the first creature Harry ever truly loves. It continues with the hippogriff, Buckbeak, a proud winged beast that teaches Harry that respect is earned, not demanded. The lesson is simple: do not bow too quickly, do not flinch, and the predator may become your ally. And then there is the Thestral. The Thestral, invisible to those who have not witnessed death, becomes Harry's steed in his darkest hours of greatest need. It carries him to the Ministry of Magic. It carries him through the final battle, and it teaches him that the things we cannot see are not always evil. Sometimes they are just waiting to be understood. This shift, from fearing the unknown to protecting the vulnerable, is the arc of Harry Potter himself, and it is the arc of the entire wizarding world. Look at how Harry treats the creatures around him as he grows. He does not kill the basilisk by instinct. He does it to save Ginny, but even then, he shows no hatred for the serpent itself. He pities the Acromantula Aragog, despite its terrifying children. He frees Dobby, the house elf, a creature enslaved by his own kind, and dies for him in the end. He rides the dragon out of Gringotts, not as a conqueror, but as a desperate passenger, and he releases it into the wild because he knows it is not a tool. It is a living thing, and this is where the legacy of the Magizoologist becomes clear. Newt Scamander's life work, his message, is not simply that creatures are fascinating. It is that they are teachers. They are mirrors. Every creature in the wizarding world reflects something about the wizards who study them. The Niffler's greed is a parody of ours. The Bowtruckle's patience teaches us to respect the natural order. The Thunderbird's storms remind us that power can cleanse as well as destroy. The Zowoo's fury shows us what happens when we cage a spirit that was meant to run free. And the Dimigweez's cloak, that is the ultimate lesson. We cannot own the future, no matter how soft its skin may be. Harry's journey is not a story about a boy who defeated a Dark Lord. It is a story about a boy who learned to see the world differently. He learned to see the Dementors not just as soul-sucking monsters, but as reflections of despair that could be fought with joy. He learned to see the unicorn's blood not as a potion for endless life, but as a cursed gift that destroyed the drinker. He learned to see the phoenix not as a pet, but as a guide who gives his tears to heal the faithful. And he learned to see the dragon not as a trophy, but as a beast that deserves to spread its wings over the mountains of Romania. The beasts are the heart of the wizarding world because they are the heart of Harry's character. Without them, he would have never understood courage. Without Buckbeak, he would never have known loyalty. Without the Thestral, he would never have accepted death. And without the hundreds of creatures that fill the pages and screens of this story, we would never be a legacy worth leaving. As we close this chapter, as we close this series of every magical creature in Harry Potter, from Dementors to dragons, we are left with one final truth. The wizarding world is not magic and wands and spells. It is the living, breathing, flapping, hissing, howling wildness that exists alongside us. And the legacy of the Magizoologist, the true legacy of Newt Scamander, and of Harry Potter, and of every witch and wizard who has ever looked a hippogriff in the eye and bowed properly, is this: we are not masters of the wild, we are its students. And if we listen closely enough, the creatures will teach us how to be worthy of the world we share. So sleep well, knowing that the Thestral is watching, the Phoenix is singing, and somewhere a Niffler is plotting its next shiny theft. The beasts live on in the stories we tell and in you. Thank you for walking this path with me. What did you think of this journey? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If this changed your perspective or taught you something new, consider subscribing for more mind-expanding content. And if you know someone who would find this as fascinating as you did, share it with them. These are the kind of conversations that matter.